2-hour meeting under the Roosevelt Bridge Monday, tweakers from across the nation drafted a 45,000-word proposal to kill all the acid-shooting spiders before they develop the powers of mind control or, God forbid, flight.
We can't ignore the spiders any longer. The government has to... There's a spider here!
The addicts have agreed that the best temporary solution would be for the government to issue them large quantities of methamphetamine and steel woke. A local daddy was put in his bye-bye box Tuesday so that he could go on a long vacation with the birds and clouds in the sky. The daddy, who was once tall and strong and liked going to the hospital to play with their fun machines, was reportedly put in the bye-bye box after weeks of being sleepy all the time and never finishing his din-din. Family had come in from all over to watch daddy get dropped inside a cool underground fort full of dirt and sand, where he'll be tonight instead of being home to play Chutes and Ladders.
This is the Onion News Network.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
Hey, what's up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another fantastic episode of Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie. That's on the Free Talk Live Network, coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee. My name is Nate Thurston. Across from me is Charles Chuck Thompson, who is the tallest known libertarian on record, Mr. Charles Chuck Thompson. How's it going today, man?
I don't think I'm the tallest known on record. I think there is one more on record.
Is he a libertarian?
I don't know.
Is Glenn Jacobs actually a libertarian? Because he is an elected Republican. So I don't know. I don't know what the rules are on that. He could be a member of the party. I'm not real sure. But someone reach out to us and let us know. So
why were you running?
Check.
You were running to start the show.
It makes you feel like the intro is going at an incredibly high rate of speed when you're doing this. And so I wanted to really get the juices flowing, you know?
Get the people going.
Yeah. It gets me going. It gets the people going.
It's
win-win.
provocative and the people like it.
It's a win-win. Powerful stuff.
Yeah.
So anyhow, that's a combination of those two words. We're going to talk about stuff that happened over the weekend. One of the things that happened, Charlie played in the golf tournament. That's why he wasn't here on Friday.
Yep.
You won the scramble portion, correct?
We won the whole thing.
Oh, the whole. I don't know how your tournament works. So
it's like a Ryder Cup, but I have the exact same knowledge of how it works as I did before you said Ryder Cup. Oh, it's match play.
Okay.
A group of 16.
Somehow my knowledge of how this works is decreasing the more you explain to me how this works.
Yeah.
So
basically it was a group of 16 guys versus a group of 16 guys.
Okay.
You know, the Ryder Cup.
Tell you, man, that sounds super gay.
Yeah. That's pretty gay.
Okay.
Okay, look. The Ryder Cup
it's not gay, it's a 32-way?
Exactly.
I got you.
The Ryder Cup is the Americans versus the Europeans. Here for Ryder, we call it Light Cup.
Okay.
It's like a Ryder Cup light version. It's the North versus the South.
So who won this one?
The North. Yeah.
Of course they did. Of course. All right. Well, he did that. I went to the Dave Smith show, almost like concert. I went to the Dave Smith comedy show and live taping of a Part of the Problem episode after that. Went and saw that at Zany's last night. It was pretty cool. Pretty cool experience, I guess. Some funny stuff. I did wear my God Hates Fed shirt, and someone did comment about it. So if you guys want people to consistently tell you that they love your shirt, then you guys should go to GodHatesFeds.com. Get yourself a God Hates Feds shirt, because I got a lot of, as usual, a lot of people stopping me saying that they love my shirt. And so that's as good a reason as any.
I love your shirt now.
Thank you.
That looks
you
great.
should go to Target and buy a pack of black shirts. There you go. So the comedy was great overall. The podcast recording portion, I believe we'll be talking about more later, probably when Josiah, the chair of LPTN, comes on and talks about it. There was just a couple weird answers to some of the questions on the Q&A, by the way. I don't have the full recording of it. I do have a partial recording, but since it's partial, I'm not gonna play it. It was just one of the answers. So LPTN right now is trying to get Clint Russell and Josie, redheaded libertarian, on the ballot as independents in Tennessee. You can't get on the ballot as a libertarian. It's like 46,000 signatures that you have to get. You can, yeah. You're legally allowed to get on the ballot as a libertarian. You just have to get 46,000-ish signatures. And of course, you've got to get like double that because they're going to try to get rid of half of them, But as an independent, they make it real easy for you. You got to get like 4,000 signatures,
how many do you need for Republican?
25.
Or Democrat?
2,500. No, 25.
25.
Yeah, that's how many.
25.
Yeah, so there was this weird moment where LPTN chair Josiah Baker stood up and asked Dave basically to support that ticket, which I'm told there was some talks beforehand that was going to be the case. Dave Smith supported what's his name, Rechtenwald, and he's a Mises Caucus guy and all that, and wasn't happy with the Chase nomination.
I mean, Dave Smith was going to run for president.
Yeah.
For 2024. Big Mises Caucus guy.
I'm going to paraphrase his answer, and if that actually comes out on the recording and I've paraphrased it completely incorrectly, then I'll apologize about that. But his answer was basically F you and stop wasting all your time with this state affiliate politics. We got national stuff to worry about. And it was like a weird answer for a dude in a decentralization movement, where he was like, I know these state party affiliates are fighting about this and that. Some people are mad. Did you know some people have a problem with the Libertarian Party of Colorado trying to help raise money with RFK Jr., who's not a libertarian? I mean, I guess he's a member, technically. I think that happened. Some people have an issue with that, even though there's a national candidate. And so Smith's answer was really weird. He was like, we just had an assassination attempt on a former president, maybe the next president, and the front runner for the Democrats, dropped out before he got the nomination. He was probably threatened with the 25th Amendment, and we got all these wars. And he was like, we got more important stuff than these state affiliate problems to mess with. We need to focus on the important things. And I'll be honest with you, I was just like, what? Well, how do you change stuff if you don't elect people? Yeah. It's like his prescription was that we all needed to be talking and tweeting more about things, but don't worry about when it comes to the actual action on the issues, Yeah.
Don't worry about promoting liberty in your state.
And people on the ground, don't worry about doing any of this stuff. We've got tweets to tweet about stuff that's going on. Don't you worry about activisting out there, okay? Which I did a little bit of that. I stood out there with a clipboard and a sheet, trying to get people to sign up.
That's big for you.
Give me their address.
I'm proud of you.
It wasn't for LPTN. I was trying to get people's addresses, But
it was your doxing campaign.
Yeah, that's all I was doing. I'm going to sell it to the feds, actually. That's all it was. That list is going to go for a lot of money, man. I'll tell you what.
This shirt I have, God hates feds.
I know. They trusted me.
It's a decoy.
Came up, gave me their address, It was great.
Phone number?
I'm probably saying something that's like totally illegal with the FEC or something right now. I have no idea. I didn't actually keep the signatures. Okay. That's not what happened.
They went to an official organization.
I gave them to my guy. He's going to make copies of them and give them to me later. So I just want to clarify. I did not take them home. They went with the official person designated. Anyhow, it was just a really weird answer. I'm going to wait for the episode to come out and maybe we'll talk about it some more. I just completely disagree with the idea, especially the Libertarian Party. Like the Libertarian Party is a combination of a bunch of state affiliates. Kind of like how the country is supposed to be.
Kind of like how the Republican Party is also a bunch of state affiliates.
Yeah, but they all get in lockstep, and since they don't have any principles, like it doesn't really matter who's on the ballot. They just want to win, and the same thing with the Democrats. They all just get in lockstep with one another, and it doesn't really matter because they don't have any principles.
I don't remember if you remember. Do you remember watching the RNC? There were sections of the state, 50 different sections of the stadium.
Yeah, like each section.
Wisconsin, Iowa, Ohio. And guess what? They all have delegates that go to the convention that vote for the nominee. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Isn't that strange?
That is weird.
You're telling me the Libertarian Party set up eerily similar to
other political parties.
Yeah,
the way political parties work.
How about that?
It was just a really weird
here,
answer.
I don't want to be part of the problem, so I'm going to focus on, national stuff.
We should just say things on microphones That ought to do it.
That means you and I have been doing the Lord's
We've
work.
been doing our job this entire time. We don't ever need to stand out there and collect signatures for anyone. Nothing like that.
This whole time you've been hawk twoing on the microphone.
I know.
For liberty.
And turns out that was the right thing to do.
And there's no reason to organize anything at a state level or a local level. There's no reason to go down to the state capitol and try to get licensures removed and increase liberty in your own state. No reason for it.
It's weird. He seems very down, Debbie Downer on the Libertarian Party right now, which is fine. His guy didn't win, and that's fine.
He was supposed to run.
I know, and he admitted like that was his fault. He got all these people hyped up, and then he dropped out. He
joined. If you look at like the founding of the Mises Caucus, like Dave Smith was one of like the OG, and it was largely based on he was motivated to run for the presidential nominee, which if he would have won.
Probably, yeah.
Handedly. Mm-hmm. And then we wouldn't be in this situation. There would be no there would be no state affiliate that wouldn't have Dave Smith on the ballot.
And he'd be very interested in what those state affiliates were doing. At that time, it would be very important to what he was doing. And
look, I like Dave Smith. I think obviously he's a really, really good articulate orator of the message, especially when it comes to debates. I think he did a great job and has done great jobs debating and spreading the ideas on some really massive platforms like Joe Rogan or JBPD podcast, DBP. What's his name? The
Patrick Bet David thing?
PBD, not BDP. Not BPD, not borderline personality disorder.
Yeah. I got you.
It's
DB podcast.
ABC podcast. Yeah.
So, all right. It's your line. You tell it, man.
He absolutely destroyed Chris Cuomo. Mm-hmm. So that was fun.
Yeah, I felt bad. I felt bad for Chris Cuomo.
a little bad.
But he deserved it.
Yeah, absolutely. But, at the same time, I guess we all have our own opinions and, maybe Dave's right.
His answer to, hey, will you support getting Clint and Josie on the ballot in Tennessee and independence was essentially something like, you're an idiot that's wasting his time and we should be talking about Trump right now.
I'm seeing from the live group that people are saying they think that he's possibly all in on taking over the RNC.
I don't know. I haven't. That's
a theory.
Unconfirmed reports on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying that's what some of the people in the live group are mentioning. It's a theory. Mm-hmm. Who knows? Well, and maybe that's a strategy. Like I said, I like Dave Smith. None of us are trying to throw shade here.
I kind of am.
Well, except Nate.
Yeah.
Nate's a shade thrower. Mm-hmm. It's a very interesting answer from someone who...
It's worse than I said it. Just so you know.
It's an interesting answer from someone who wants to promote liberty. The best way to do it, as we all know, is to start as locally as you possibly can. Mm-hmm.
You should tweet about
If you can free your neighborhood from your HOA, that's a step in the right direction.
You should do that after you tweet about Trump, though. Just to be clear. We got to talk about the important stuff and then the HOA after that. So, just so you know.
I'm the opposite then. Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. Let's talk about a controversy that's happening right now. Did you see this AI deep fake video of Kamala Harris that Elon Musk tweeted out over the weekend?
It should be a crime from what I heard.
It should be a crime. I want to play it because it was great. And then I want to show you a couple of the lefties that are really mad about this. And then that'll transition us into a conversation about the censorship we all used to endure online all the time. Some odd censorship that's happening right now on Google.
Since been corrected, but
it hasn't. No, I just did it.
Oh, I did it this morning. It was corrected.
It's not. We'll check that here in a bit. We'll check that and see. Here's the AI of Kamala.
It's currently autofilling for me.
Is it really?
Just fine.
It's autofilling what? What are you typing?
Prez. Donald Trump's the number 2 result.
Did you type assassination attempt?
Oh, no, I haven't.
Yeah, I mean, it'll show you results for Donald Trump. It's just a really weird thing going on Google right now.
Oh, the first one's on Truman.
Yeah. It doesn't do anything until you put the P after
it
the
doesn't even do that.
And it doesn't do anything after that still. There's like no suggested searches. It's weird. The weirdest thing.
That is.
Okay, here's the Kamala video that was great. Freaking hilarious.
I, Kamala Harris, and your Democrat candidate for president, because Joe Biden finally exposed his senility at the debate. Thanks, Joe. I was selected because I am the ultimate diversity hire. I'm both a woman and a person of color. So if you criticize anything I say, you're both sexist and racist. I may not know the first thing about running the country, but remember, that's a good thing if you're a deep state puppet. I had 4 years under the tutelage of the ultimate deep state puppet, a wonderful mentor, Joe Biden. Joe taught me rule number 1, carefully hide your total incompetence. I take insignificant things and I discuss them as if they're significant. And I believe that exploring the significance of the insignificant is in itself significant. Talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time.
I think that's a real clip.
There is great significance to the passage of time, and there is such great significance to the passage of time. Another trick is trying to sound black. I pretend to celebrate Kwanzaa, and in my speeches, I always do my best Barack Obama impression. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type. And okay, look, maybe my work addressing the root causes of the border crisis were catastrophic, but my knowledge of international politics is truly shocking. The United States shares a very important relationship, which is an alliance with the Republic of North Korea. It is an alliance that is strong and enduring. And just remember, when voting this November, it is important to see what can be unburdened by what has been. And by what has been, I mean Joe Biden.
It's so good. It's so good.
That's great.
I need as many of these as possible. Now, the really stupid controversy about this is that apparently this is missing. So the idea is that people didn't know this was a deep fake. Now, there's probably no one that came forward and was like, oh, I thought this was real. You know, I was going to change my vote. And then finally Gavin Newsom tweeted about it and I found out that it was a fake video, you know?
Yeah.
It's like people who can't vote because of ID laws or something like they don't exist. It's a potential problem, I guess, that people use to scare you.
Well, this is election interference if I've ever seen it.
I also found out it's tweeted by Mr. Reagan, and this isn't, in fact, Ronald Reagan that tweeted this out. Like, total misinformation. That's crazy, man. We have a community note here. AI-generated video must be marked as such. Let's see. I don't know. They put parody in a tweet. Label parody, also disinformation. Listen, if you don't know that this is AI, you shouldn't be voting in the first place. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't be allowed to vote, and I'll sign that law right now. I'll do it. Yeah, if that's what we're working with, then great. Good for you. Gavin Newsom says manipulating the voice in an ad. He put ads in quotes because it's not an ad. I guess it's made to look like an ad, though. Like this one should be illegal. I'll be signing a bill in a matter of weeks to make sure it is. So he's going to sign a bill in California. Says you won't be able to make stuff like that's going to solve it, because apparently so many people that were going to vote for Kamala Harris are just dumb as and they had no clue that this was real, fake, really fake. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Elon Musk responded with, I checked with the renowned world authority, Professor Sugon D's Nuts, and he said parody is still illegal in America. That's why I want to be a billionaire. Yeah. Nothing else. I don't care about a house or cars or anything. I just want to have a ton of followers so I can do that right there. That's the only incentive that I need to be a billionaire.
To buy a massive social media company with billions, hundreds of millions to billions of users. and then tweet something like that.
To tell Gavin Newsom to suck on these nuts. It's worth it, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's worth the $44 billion. It has to be. Ed Krasenstein said, imagine if George Soros bought X and started posting anti-Trump AI-generated propaganda on X. What do you think MAGA Republicans would do? And this person says, I don't think Ed understands that this was Twitter for a decade. And that's kind of true. His response, he says it was, so he admits that that's what Twitter's been. And they handled things incorrectly. So your argument is that they should now continue that in the opposite direction and be hypocrites to get the left back, so you don't actually have values. I don't think that this is exactly what Twitter was for a decade. See, I think what Elon Musk is doing is fine because he is doing it right out there in the open. He's posting it. People know that it's a parody and it's a deep fake. You would never hear a politician say...
Most people know.
Yeah. You would never hear a politician say true things like that.
Right.
Okay? The fact that those were true statements means it's fake. Clearly, there's your fact check. You don't have to run it through a program or anything. That's it. So...
I can't.
That's it. But what we had for a decade, and we still have on other platforms, is like this hidden censorship.
I'm so glad I get to listen to this show. This is my favorite show.
Good. You know what I mean? We used to have hidden censorship, but like things just wouldn't exist and you wouldn't really know that they didn't exist. It was like an unseen problem because you'd never see it. And that's the kind of thing that we had. And it's not that you had Jack Dorsey out there posting specifically like pro whoever Hillary Clinton ads or something like that. It was that he just censored all the anti-Hillary Clinton stuff.
Yeah.
You know, or some of it. Not the Russian stuff.
Or the Hunter Biden stuff.
Yeah. That kind of stuff.
The laptop.
So I think this thing is fine. What the Soros people do is like a behind the scenes sort of thing where they're funding these specific elections and, you know, putting prosecutors in power in certain places to you know, not actually, I don't know, uphold the law. I don't know what prosecutors are supposed to do. Destiny had Destiny, that guy.
No.
He had a response to this that Project Liberal posted out. That's our friend Josh Eckel. He's getting real close to me saying his last name different.
Yeah.
Again. But still a nice guy.
I don't know about that anymore, actually.
So I'm still saying he's a nice guy. He reposted this Destiny video. Here you go.
I was selected because I am the ultimate diversity hire. I'm both a woman and a person of color. So if you criticize anything I say, you're both sexist and racist.
Every single argument that conservatives made about how platforms should be treated as publishers, that we should treat them as publishers now because they're banning people who are racist Nazis, right? All of those arguments were bullshit. Because now the CEO of Twitter is publishing stuff that is clearly like opinion and nobody gives a about that. Every single conspiracy theory about George Soros is now invalid when one of the richest men on the planet, who bought one of the largest social media companies on the planet, is now posting deepfake AI misinformation on his ownership account. Okay, like every conspiracy theory you ever thought you had about Soros or Bill Gates or anybody else is just completely defunct. Like this is so out in the open. What the? Could you imagine Mark Zuckerberg?
Pause right there.
He just said
it.
And we'll tell you what he just said as soon as we get back.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. In addition to being one of the world's first cryptocurrencies, Dash was the first crypto project to have a decentralized autonomous organization that to this day continues to improve and promote Dash. Every month, 10% of the mining rewards go into a treasury. Anyone with one Dash to spend can put forward a proposal to the Dash masternodes. The masternodes vet the proposals and decide which ones move forward and are funded by that treasury. Nowadays, DAOs are plentiful, but Dash paved the way by doing it first, nearly a decade ago. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Israel has confirmed it was behind the missile strike on Lebanon's capital, Beirut. Its military says it was a targeted strike against the Hezbollah commander who carried out the attack at the weekend on the Golan Heights that hit a soccer pitch. Hezbollah denied involvement in that strike, which killed 12 children and teenagers. FSN Sarah Coates reports from Tel Aviv.
This Israeli strike, a targeted strike, was going after the chief of staff of Hassan Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah. Now, according to a number of security sources on the ground in the southern suburbs of Beirut, where that strike happened just a couple of hours ago, this man, Fouad Shahar, he actually did, according to security sources, survive this attempt on his life. But we are hearing that there have been a couple of fatalities and a number of other people wounded. Now, the Israeli Defense Forces have put out a statement saying it was targeted on this commander and that he was responsible for the rocket attack in the Golan Heights on Majd al-Shams, and that happened late Saturday.
The acting Secret Service director has called the attempted assassination of former US President Donald Trump a failure on multiple levels. Roland Rowe was testifying before Congress a week after the agency's director resigned. Republican and Democratic lawmakers grilled Rowe on the failings that led up to the shooting. He spoke about those and detailed actions the agency is now taking as it investigates what went wrong.
The attempted assassination of former President Donald J. Trump on Saturday, July 13th, 2024, in Butler, Pennsylvania, was a failure on multiple levels. I join you and all Americans in condemning the horrific assault on former President Trump, Corey Comparator, James Copenhaver, and David Dutch. And I extend my deepest sympathies to the Comparator family and my sincere wishes for Mr. Copenhaver and Mr. Dutch's continued recovery.
Violent protests are continuing in Venezuela following Sunday's disputed election result. Police have fired tear gas and rubber bullets at people demonstrating against President Nicolas Maduro, who claimed victory. The opposition claims its candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, won by a large margin. FSN's Mary Trini Mena reports from Caracas.
We are expecting more demonstrations today from both government supporters and opposition supporters. The government says they will be in the streets defending their victory because they believe Nicolás Maduro won the election. The opposition is claiming that they have the vote that Edmundo Gonzalez won the presidential election. So we have right now a complex situation in the country. The situation has been escalating over the past 24 hours with clashes with police forces.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Nate and Charlie with Liberty at Night on the Free Talk Live Network. We were talking about Destiny saying that conservatives can no longer get mad.
He just said it. This is so out in the open. Right!
It is out in the open.
Exactly!
That's why it's different.
It should be!
That's why it's different. What the other people are doing is behind the scenes. And they buy off these people and they control the narrative without it being out in the open. They make sure that only certain experts can speak about things, and they give you an expert consensus on something after they somehow take care of all the others. You know, this is totally different. So the fact that he's clearly, he even says it earlier, he's like, he's posting something that's clearly opinionated. That's why it's different.
Yes.
It's clearly opinionated.
Yes.
It's clearly a joke and clearly deepfake AI.
It even said parody on it.
It did.
Yeah.
That video did. I heard that there was one that they removed the parody thing from or something like that. I don't know.
Who cares?
Yeah, so it's still clearly fake. See our last conversation about the fact that there were true things in it. Mm-hmm. You know, so we know it's fake. Yeah,
let's cancel Weird Al Yankovic and whoever else.
On Facebook, like posting a deep fake video of Donald Trump making like a fake.
Mark Zuckerberg spent like $500 million on the 2020 election, personally. Okay, Now that wasn't straight out in the open in front of everyone, but he still spent like $500 million on the last election. We know about that. But then when someone comes out and like truthfully, clearly posts something out, here is my opinion for everyone to see, obviously fake. the video I'm posting, that's the problem. You rather people hide it from you because that's what we've been dealing with all this time. Yeah. You know? Okay. That's that part.
Well, that's just, that's the camp we can put Josh Eckel in.
And then we have this next thing that's really weird. Speaking of just odd censorship.
Just real quick on Josh Eckel, I've turned a corner, because I think I've tried to give this guy the benefit of the doubt this whole time. But after his tweet about we're voting for Kamala, he's clearly not a libertarian.
Well, yeah, I don't have any respect for him politically.
Yeah.
All I say is that he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
I don't respect his opinions or principles or anything because he don't have any. There's another answer, Josh. If you're listening right now, don't vote. There's a difference in hating Trump, and so you're not going to vote for him, and being a guy who's been a libertarian for so long, probably still holds a bunch of those beliefs, and deciding to vote for Kamala Harris, who's out there talking about assault weapons bans and Medicare for all and equity and all sorts of other stuff.
His literal tweet says, we're gun owners. We hold conservative beliefs. We support fracking. We're homeschooling our kids. We mine Bitcoin. We bulk buy locally sourced beef. We're voting for Kamala Harris, who is going to attempt to destroy all the stuff I just listed. All
the stuff you just said. She thinks that she has the power to take away all those things from you. And I think I understand this idea because people somehow they sincerely believe that Trump is going to be a dictator, like an authoritarian. He's the next Maduro, right? Who just won re-election in Venezuela. Okay. Definitely won it for sure.
He's the next Hitler or Stalin or Mao. Somehow that's Trump.
If I were him, I would have done that the first term. That way he could have stayed in.
That way he wouldn't have to.
He wouldn't have to worry about the election in the first place.
Yeah. Obviously, if he was a dictator, he would have just won in 2020.
Yeah, that's what he should have done.
Yeah.
Now he did try to stay, but he did try to stay in office. The thing happened on January 6th. Guess what? On January 20th or 21st, I don't know when his lease was up.
19th.
Whenever it was, he left.
The 19th.
They didn't have tanks around the White House or anything like that. I'm not leaving. Staying in the desk. Here I am. Come and get me. That didn't happen. He left.
Yeah.
He tried to change or recognize the actual results of the election or whatever. I think he actually believed that it had been stolen.
He still believes that.
It very well might have been.
He still believes that.
Could have been.
Yeah.
It was definitely stolen in the sense that the intelligence community was involved in trying to get Biden in there. I mean, you tell me, who do you think the FBI wants the next president to be out of Kamala Harris or Donald Trump?
Or even in 2020, who do they want? Yeah. Joe Biden or Trump?
It's probably the Democrat.
Yeah.
Who do you think the CIA wants the president to be? The Republican or the Democrat? Trump or whoever the Democrat is?
Anyone else but Trump.
Anyone but Trump.
And probably RFK. They probably don't want him either.
Probably those. Who do you think the healthcare establishment wants to be in there? I don't know. Maybe they don't want Medicare for all, so maybe they're fighting for Trump. I don't know. You can say maybe the banks. Maybe they want Trump. I'm not sure. He printed a bunch of money. That's fine. But the people in the deep state, they clearly have their preferred candidates. And it's not the guy who says he's going to try and clean up the deep state. It's not that at all.
Mm-hmm.
That argument right there is enough to get some people to vote for Trump, because all these people hate him.
Yeah.
It's got to mean something, right? I hate those people. Those people hate him. So maybe he's my friend. I don't know.
I mean, it's literally, I'm like 99.9% there.
Yeah.
Like
almost.
I'm going to vote. I'm probably going to vote for a guy that I don't like.
And I just won't vote unless
and it's
I
not,
decide
and
to
I'm
vote.
not saying because I'm anti-principled. That's not why. Like, I know that this vote would specifically go against my principles.
Mm-hmm.
But it's almost as if my bitterness is outweighing.
Have you thought about maybe you just now made it to where a bunch of Republicans were in 2016 and 2020, and you guys were just in different time zones from each other, and now you finally got bitter enough that you're like, okay, screw the state,
I almost voted for him in 2020 because of the Russiagate and all the lies and the way they were trying to take him out, impeaching him twice and all of that stuff. But the assassination attempt and, you know, the not allowing to ask questions about what's really going on, those things are making me lean towards, you know, it's like the market, right? You know, when everyone's buying, you should be selling. Mm-hmm. When everyone's selling, you should be buying.
That's generally true.
And they have been trying to sell Trump now. Like, get rid of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've been trying to short Trump
for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just saying, maybe it deserves a buy.
So this weird thing that's happening with Google, I'm surprised because normally...
Amanda says, what assassination attempt?
That's why I was laughing.
I can't find it on Google.
Normally, they've got some kind of a BS excuse, like, I don't know, safety, you know, so their misinformation or whatever. But I don't understand this Google thing where you type in assassination attempt on
Trump,
TRUM, and it still doesn't autofill the suggested searches with Trump. Like, he's nowhere on the list at all. It's really, really weird. And so I guess that just means that their algorithm has deprioritized any searching about that. And I guess because after that assassination attempt occurred, we said, a lot of people we know said, well, that's it. The election's over. He just won with that picture, you know, with his fist up in the air. That's it. And magically, a lot of people have forgotten about that. It's kind of like it didn't happen already in people's minds. And a lot of people on the left have decided that he didn't actually get shot, that it was a glass from the teleprompter or something that hit him. I was hanging out at a friend's house this weekend, and they were showing the speech, and he's like, oh, you better watch out for that teleprompter. I'm like, okay, so what's your point? So the bullet didn't hit his ear. It was a few other inches away, and the glass from the teleprompter that got hit by a bullet hit him in the head. Like, what's your point?
He didn't have bullets flying at his head?
Yeah. Someone tried to kill him.
Yeah.
That still happened.
Even if you can, like you said, concede the fact that a bullet didn't graze his ear. Maybe it didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't seen his ear.
Now, I saw Donald Trump Jr. said, oh, he lost like half his ear. That's not true.
No.
He didn't. There's like a little mark on his ear. Pretty soon, you won't be able to tell anything happened. Probably.
Yeah.
But still, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter at all. Who cares?
There were literal bullets flying at him.
All you're saying is, I don't like it when people have any sympathy for this guy. That's all you're saying. And so you want to try and downplay it as much as possible. Maybe because you think it's Hitler or something like that, but whatever. The Google thing is really weird. There's also other stuff happening like on...
Now, the other thing about X is that this probably wouldn't be happening. You wouldn't be able to share this type of story that Google isn't allowing you to kind of search for the assassination attempt on Trump.
True.
On X.
Then we just wouldn't know.
Also be censoring it.
Mm-hmm. And that's the difference in the type of censorship and type of bias that we were talking about in our previous segment.
Mm-hmm.
Meta...
Totally unplanned, this entire episode.
Meta AI is also doing something weird. I saw this several times, telling me about the assassination attempt on Trump. It says, I can't assist with that. I don't always have access to the most up-to-date information. Can I help you with something else? And it says, tell me about Kamala Harris's campaign for president 2024. And it's got Kamala Harris's 2024 presidential campaign announcement. Here's the date that she announced, July 21st, when Joe Biden withdrew his bid for re-election. And it's got all the up-to-date information on it. That's just... It's strange.
Which just happened.
Yeah, it just happened. The other thing was on July 13th. When that happened, seems like you'd be able to muster up one paragraph about it. You know, I checked ChatGPT and it does have information.
Okay.
Because it's, I don't know, man. And I am surprised in the day where I tweeted out this morning that I was surprised that Google hadn't fixed it yet. Fixed it was in quotes because, like you said, back in the day, we just wouldn't have known that this kind of thing was happening because it wouldn't have been posted all over the place.
Unless it got shared by a friend or something.
Yeah.
You know,
like an email chain. And if you don't send it, you're going to have bad luck for 7 years or something like that.
Yeah.
Kids don't know what we're talking about, you know?
Yeah. or you're going straight to hell.
But now now these days, everyone knows this is happening, and it's still there. And Meta, the same way. I mean, heck, Mark Zuckerberg came out and said that was one of the most badass things he's ever seen. And here's Meta AI. I mean, I know Mark Zuckerberg's not in there coding everything, but here's Meta AI doing basically the same thing. It's just wild that even with an assassination attempt of someone, you would decide to remove it from search, essentially. And you can still search it. It's going to give you results. But search suggestions not popping up or AI not being able to pull it when you're talking to it means that it's been blacklisted in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. And the people that are purposefully manipulating things like this, that's how you know who the bad guys are. Okay? Like, I don't like the right or the left, but I have more of a problem with the left. And I think this is something that Elon Musk did a good job of when he was talking to Jordan Peterson the other day, that he really woke up to the woke mind virus, the left, the purposeful manipulation, narcissistic, projecting victim status of the left that will purposely do things like this and then claim
they'll gaslight you
that the other side is the one trying to destroy democracy.
Yeah.
And it drives me so insane that I just want to jump out of a window. And that's what they want you to do.
That's literally
that is the goal of gaslighting.
The goal that they're doing.
Yes.
They actually want you to react and do something bad so then they can use that against you and continue their whole...
That way they can feel unsafe.
All their control.
And then once they feel unsafe,
The Heritage Oversight Project, speaking about the assassination attempt, the Heritage Oversight Project, just called Oversight Project, has some odd information on the would-be assassins' connections. So they say, we found the assassins' connections through our in-depth analysis of mobile ad data to track movements of Crooks and his associates. To do this, we tracked devices that regularly visited both Crooks's home and place of work and followed them. So they made a list of the devices that followed his home and his work, and then they looked at some of their other locations. And this is interesting. The places these devices went. You could guess. It's up there in the
places these devices did go.
Yes. Someone who regularly visited Crook's home and work also visited a building in Washington, D.C., located in Gallery Place. This is in the same vicinity of an FBI office on June 26, 2023. Whose device is this? I do have to share with you the community note. The location they posted on here is nearly 1 mile away from the FBI building. And apparently FBI's Uber policy is it's got to be within half mile, for them to Uber out to dinner with someone. They say the entire downtown region of DC is only 2 square miles. So basically any building that you pick in that area, they'd be able to say it's in the vicinity of a FBI building. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
But we don't know who these people are because there are multiple.
Very far from the U.S. Secret Service headquarters.
That's interesting. That's also it. Oh, yeah.
It's right there.
Isn't it? I didn't even notice that. Why did they mention the FBI? The Secret Service headquarters is right
there.
It's like, oh, it's the parking lot for the Secret Service headquarters.
Yeah.
Okay. That's weird.
Okay.
Another device linked to Crooks visited Plymouth, Massachusetts. They've got the Hotel 1620 Plymouth Harbor, Logan International Airport, Boston, and then also visiting Crooks. And basically the gist of this is we don't have a list of Crooks's friends or family that was traveling back and forth between DC and the surrounding area a month before the shooting occurred. And we don't know who he had regular contact with that also had regular contact with the parking lots of government buildings. We don't know that part. They said we found a device linked to Crooks's work that traveled to Butler, Pennsylvania on July 4th and July 8th. Okay, so this device traveled to Butler, Pennsylvania on July 4th, July 8th. This device stopped all activity on July 12th. Done. And then the shooting was on July 13th. Okay, so that's strange.
You guys ever seen the movie Shooter?
I've seen it, yeah.
It turns out that internet coffee shop is just a few blocks away from the nearest FBI office.
Turns out. Man, I'm surprised they haven't had that movie taken off the internet, just remove it.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. Also, this will be our last thing. Seymour Hersh is saying that Obama threatened Biden with the 25th Amendment, saying that he had Kamala's approval to force him out of the 2024 race. And that's why Biden actually dropped out.
Well, that's why they dropped out for him, and then they told him a couple days later.
Yeah, right afterwards.
Yeah.
So in this piece from Seymour Hersh called Leaving Las Vegas, he said, I went over these reports this week with a senior official in Washington who helped me fashion an account of a White House in complete disarray. So, of course, he's not going to tell you who the senior official is. That's all the information you have, is that it's a senior official in Washington. And then you have to trust that Seymour Hersh is not just making stuff up for fun.
All right, after the debate, there was mounting pressure on Biden to drop out. The White House and the president himself denied that he was suffering from anything more than a bad day, a cold, and jet lag, even though he was there for like 2 weeks. There were lots of tortured questions and broken hearts, but the message was the same. The president is in good health and is going to run for re-election this fall and carry on serving for 4 more years after he defeats Trump. He was sharp.
He was sharp. Cogent.
Work with him every single day.
Mm-hmm.
On Monday, July 15th, Biden took off on Air Force One on a campaign trip to Nevada, a toss-up state that Biden won in 2020 by a little more than 30,000 votes. That is ridiculously close to the presidential election. On Tuesday, he gave the keynote address to 5,000 members of the NAACP, which was absolutely atrocious. My God, it might have been worse than the debates. The next day, the president apparently...
I'm sure he said he was going to cap rents at $55.
$55. Who wouldn't vote for that guy? The next day, the president apparently stricken while campaigning with a yet-to-be-revealed illness, broke from his schedule and made a police escort race to Air Force One after initially telling police that they were heading to the nearest emergency room. A series of blog posts, local police reports, internet messages, and report in the Daily Mail disclosed further details of Biden's trip to Vegas and his abrupt return home to Delaware. I went over these reports this week with a senior official in Washington.
Oh, that was that part right there.
Yes.
Next.
At that point, according to Emily Gooden, a Daily Mail reporter who was at the traveling press pool, the president was deathly pale. And Air Force One flew at maximum speed to Delaware, where the president has a weekend retreat at Rehoboth Beach. The press pool was told that Biden had COVID. Nothing more was said on Air Force One.
You think he had COVID?
I don't know, but he was almost dead. I know that. That was the last straw for a core group of congressional leaders, government officials, and some senior Biden funders who were withholding huge amounts of committed contributions. Quote, there was pressure on donors to come across on their pending commitments, the official told me. It was understood that Biden had a physical problem in Las Vegas and the family was saying no to continued pressure from donors and senior Democrats in Congress to withdraw from the presidential campaign. Initially, the president could not be reached. Saturday, July 20th, former President Barack Obama was deeply involved, and there was talk that he would place a call to Biden. It was not clear whether Biden had been examined or just what happened to him in Las Vegas. The big three, the official said, referring to former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Senate Majority Leader Chucky Schumer, and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, continued to be directly involved. On Sunday morning, the official told me, with the approval of Pelosi and Schumer, Obama called Biden after breakfast and said, here's the deal. Here's the deal.
He was speaking Biden's terms.
Yeah.
Look, he probably said, look,
yeah,
here's the deal.
Look, man, here's the deal.
No joke. Thanks, man.
We have Kamala's approval to invoke the 25th Amendment. The amendment provides that when the president is determined by the vice president and others to be unfit to carry out the powers and duties of his office, the vice president shall assume those duties. Quote, it was clear at this point, the official said, that she would get the nod. That is, the support to run for the presidency in the November election. But Obama also made it clear, the official said, that he was not going to immediately endorse her. But the group had decided that her work as a prosecutor would help her deal with Trump in a debate.
All right, that's probably enough on that. So you do have to believe all Seymour Hersh's when you're reading this piece, that he's not just completely making it up. Well, let's pretend for a second that this is one of the most highly respected investigative journalists in American history. Let's just pretend for a second that that's who we were talking about. Okay. And then after that, you said, all right, so that's true. Obama called, threatened the 25th Amendment. Nancy, Chucky erection, Kamala, Hakeem, all these people were in on it. Kamala said that, yes, she would invoke the 25th Amendment. She's fine with that. And so they got him to drop out. After they probably already posted that he was dropping out, probably around the same time that they told him that this was the deal. They probably already posted everything at that time. And then he gets to be a hero after that. He's this noble American hero who stepped aside so the new generation could come up and defeat fascism, all that kind of stuff. And we're supposed to not pay attention to the fact that this guy almost got 25th Amendmented and he's still the president right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of crazy. And also, this sort of sounds like a coup. You know?
Based on my knowledge of coups, that's, yeah.
It's pretty coup-ish.
It sounds, yeah.
So,
at least it was Democratic, though. They all kind of got together and voted.
They voted. It's a group of 4 people got together, and they all said yes. So what was Biden supposed to say? He's like, well, I'm pro-democracy, so 4 of you. That's a unanimous decision on your part.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. That's what we're dealing with right now. And these are the people that are going to help save democracy and save it from Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Now, Trump's got some real bad ideas. A lot of stupid stuff he
had
says.
Elon not bought X, this story probably would have been completely blacklisted from every social media company you could imagine. And we, reading this story, would probably get strikes on YouTube and every other place you could imagine that we were spreading disinformation. Because we're questioning
the official narrative.
Yeah, we're questioning but we're also asking the question, is it possible that Biden was threatened with the 25th Amendment? And the answer to that is, it's absolutely possible.
Yeah.
Now, do we know it to be true? No, we don't. Of course we don't. But is it a possibility? Yes.
I think it's a very real possibility.
I do too. I strongly believe that this is actually what happened.
I think it's why on Friday he was saying that like God himself would have to come down. And turns out it was the Trinity.
He would
all of them. Big three
basically
came down.
For him to drop out, he would have to strike an iceberg. You know?
Yeah.
Which wasn't going to happen.
All right, we will be back with some great interviews and then, of course, Dumb Bleep of the Week. Make sure you follow our daily podcast, Good Morning Liberty. We will talk to you again real soon.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live listen line, 641-793-0191.
The latest episode of Free Talk Live continues with Hour 2 up next after the news here at listen.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Israel has confirmed it was behind the missile strike on Lebanon's capital, Beirut. Its military says it was a targeted strike against the Hezbollah commander who carried out the attack at the weekend on the Golan Heights that hit a soccer pitch. Hezbollah denied involvement in that strike, which killed 12 children and teenagers. Everson Sarah Coates reports from Tel Aviv.
This Israeli strike, a targeted strike, was going after the chief of staff of Hassan Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah. Now, according to a number of security sources on the ground in the southern suburbs of Beirut, where that strike happened just a couple of hours ago, this man, Fouad Shahar, he actually did, according to security sources, survive this attempt on his life. But we are hearing that there have been a couple of fatalities and a number of other people wounded. Now, the Israeli Defense Forces have put out a statement saying it was targeted on this commander and that he was responsible for the rocket attack in the Golan Heights on Majd al-Shams, and that happened late Saturday.
The acting Secret Service director has called the attempted assassination of former US President Donald Trump a failure on multiple levels. Roland Rowe was testifying before Congress a week after the agency's director resigned. Republican and Democratic lawmakers grilled Rowe on the failings that led up to the shooting. He spoke about those and detailed actions the agency is now taking as it investigates what went wrong.
The attempted assassination of former President Donald J. Trump on Saturday, July 13th, 2024, in Butler, Pennsylvania, was a failure on multiple levels. I join you and all Americans in condemning the horrific assault on former President Trump, Corey Comparator, James Copenhaver, and David Dutch. And I extend my deepest sympathies to the Comparator family and my sincere wishes for Mr. Copenhaver and Mr. Dutch's continued recovery.
Violent protests are continuing in Venezuela following Sunday's disputed election result. Police have fired tear gas and rubber bullets at people demonstrating against President Nicolas Maduro, who claimed victory. The opposition claims its candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, won by a large margin. Everson's Mary Trini Mena reports from Caracas.
We are expecting more demonstrations today from both government supporters and opposition supporters. The government says they will be in the streets defending their victory because they believe Nicolás Maduro won the election. The opposition is claiming that they have the vote that Edmundo Gonzalez won the presidential election. So we have right now a complex situation in the country. The situation has been escalating over the past 24 hours with clashes with police forces.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. The US Federal Reserve could soon signal when it's likely to bring down borrowing costs in the United States. The central bank's two-day meeting is underway, with market watchers looking for signs that a rate reduction is on the cards. FSN's Sally Patterson reports from New York.
Markets are widely expecting interest rates to be left unchanged by the Federal Reserve this week. But there's hope the central bank will offer hints about when rates might be cut and how many times that'll happen this year. Most analysts suspect that reduction will begin in September as inflation continues to come down. The Fed's preferred inflation measure, the PCE, continued to gradually cool overall in June. In recent months, Fed Chair Jerome Powell has acknowledged measures to bring down inflation to the central bank's 2% target are working, but says there's still more to do.
UK authorities say 3 children were killed and 9 were injured by a man with a knife in an attack in Southport, northwest England on Monday. 5 of the children remain in a critical condition, as well as 2 adults. Merseyside Police says it believes the injured adults were bravely trying to protect the children from being attacked. FSN Simon Gaitan reports.
The children were attending a Taylor Swift-themed yoga dance workshop for kids aged 6 to 11 when a teenager entered the building and stabbed them. The regional police force says it's still making inquiries to attempt to find a motive for what it's calling a tragic incident, but it's the seaside town of Southport near the city of Liverpool in England's northwest. Taylor Swift reacted to the news on Tuesday, saying she was at a complete loss in a post on Instagram. Southport's MP called the attack the worst atrocity in living memory to affect the area.
That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
So, Shelby, let's start with you. You say that our bogs and marshes should actually be paved over.
That's right. Absolutely, Brooke. These things are nothing but dead body dumping pits that make life easy for murderers. And it's disgusting to me that sickos like Mr. Popkin actually want to protect these things.
All right, well, Mr. Popkin, how do you respond to this?
Bogs and marshes are important ecosystems that should be protected. I mean, they're already being endangered.
Whoa, excuse me. As long as these human landfills remain open for business, what we're essentially saying to the criminal element is, sure, do whatever you like and throw the evidence here in this federally protected black hole.
I testified before Senator Chuck Grassley, who wanted to lift federal protection on these lands, and what I told him is exactly what I'm going to tell you now.
And where is Chuck Grassley right now, sir? Could it be that he's sitting at the bottom of a bog somewhere? Why else would you be so hot on these wetlands if you aren't a murderer yourself?
This is the Onion News Network.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live.
Well, what's up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another fantastic episode of Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live Network, coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee. I got to tell you, the Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. With fees of less than a penny per transaction, Dash is made for spending. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol and in multi-crypto wallets. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month for this sponsorship. It's easy to get and use Dash. You can learn more at dash.org. That's dash.org. And as you guys also know, I did start a savings account a few years ago. I put $5,000 in it, and I never looked at it again. And now that $5,000 is worth roughly about $4,100. That's because the government's been punishing me for keeping my money in a savings account through inflation. Of course, we've had like 20% cumulative inflation over the last few years. It's actually been way more than that, as most of you guys probably know. But inflation is a tax on savers like me. Systematic erosion of your wealth. Items that cost $10 today could cost $15 tomorrow, but your savings account still has the same amount of money in it, so it's losing its purchasing power. Savings also very important, guys. I mean, this is the kind of thing that you want to incentivize in a productive economy, is people saving their money, using it in the most efficient way possible. When you have high inflation, you're incentivizing people to spend their money, which causes prices to continue to rise. The founders of Noble Gold have more than 20 years of combined experience in buying gold and silver. They've secured more than $1 billion in precious metals for their clients. Very exciting because gold can be a hedge against inflation. Gold remains steady when inflation's on the rise and the dollar's in turmoil. It can be a defense against economic downturn. Unlike money, gold can't be printed, so it can be your shield in times of economic uncertainty. To find out more, go to noblegoldinvestments.com/GML. That's noblegoldinvestments.com/GML. This is, of course, Liberty at Night on Free Talk Live, but don't forget that Charlie and I have a daily show called Good Morning Liberty, where we give you the news, the daily news from a libertarian mindset. That's Good Morning Liberty. You can go to bernielies.com in your browser. That's an easy way to do it. You can go to joingml.com and join our Fed Haters Club. Watch the show live. Interact with us during every single show as you hear us interacting with people when you're listening. And you can also vote in Dumb Bleep of the Week. Go to GodHatesFeds.com to get shirts. You know, we did a ton of interviews at Freedom Fest. This is one that I wanted to bring to you guys because we've heard a lot of stuff in the news recently about crime. So people on the right will claim that crime is increasing and getting worse. People on the left and the government will say that crime is actually going down, that Trump had highs in crime, massive spike, of course, having nothing to do with riots that occurred in the summer of 2020. But crime went up under Trump, and then the magical Joe Biden has been able to decrease it. But I talked to Dr. John Lott from the Crime Prevention Research Center, and let me tell you what, his list of credentials is impressive. And it turns out the stats aren't correct at all. Here's that interview. Hey, what's up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is Nate with Good Morning Liberty. I'm sitting here with Mr. John Lott of the Crime Prevention Research Center. John, thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
So why don't you, if people don't know, give them a little bit of the details about yourself and then the work you do over at, do you call it the CPRC, I guess?
Yeah, right. Crime Prevention Research Center.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've been an academic most of my life. I've had positions at Stanford, University of Chicago, the Wharton Business School, Yale, UCLA, Rice. I was chief economist at the U.S. Sentencing Commission, and then more recently I was senior advisor for research in statistics in the Department of Justice.
Okay.
So done a lot of work on crime over the years, but I'm an economist. I have a PhD in economics, and so I've done a lot of other issues too. So
now, CPRC, what about the work that you do with them?
Well, we're basically a group of academics. We have people at Harvard, University of Chicago, Wharton Business School, University of Michigan, other places who have done various studies and research on crime-related issues, and so we know where the numbers are on things, and you know, there's lots of claims that are put out there in the media, and we try to get objective information on it.
What kind of specific numbers are we doing? Shooting statistics, mass shooting statistics?
Well, we do all that, but basically almost anything you can talk about with regard to crime, we talk about. So, I mean, just crime numbers generally. You know, one of the claims that the media has been making recently is that crime is down. And they'll go and point to the FBI reported crime data, but there's a lot of issues with that. One is reported crimes aren't all crimes. We know most crimes aren't reported to police. Only about 42% of violent crimes are reported to police. Only about 32% of property crimes are reported to police. And the way we know that is from something called the National Crime Victimization Survey, which surveys about 240,000 people each year. You know, you talk about large surveys being 8,000 or 9,000 people. This is 240,000. And they've been doing this for over 50 years. And people are asked about 40 different questions if they indicate that they've been a victim of a crime. Anything from where it occurred, when it occurred, what was involved, who committed the crime, what the outcomes were. What you find is that, so I'll give you an example. In 2022, the FBI reported crime data showed about a 2% drop in violent crime. The National Crime Victimization data showed a 42% increase in violent crime that same year. Prior to 2020, those numbers were pretty closely in sync with each other, total crimes and reported crimes. But since 2020, they've gone in perfectly opposite directions each year. And there are multiple reasons for that. One of the reasons is that law enforcement's collapsed in this country. So I'll give you an example. This is true across all cities, but if you take large cities, let's say over 1 million in population, in the 5 years before COVID, 44% of violent crimes resulted in arrest. It started falling in 2020, and by 2022, it was down to only 20% of reported violent crimes result in arrest, and only 8% of all violent crimes reported and unreported result in arrest. And the drop is even greater for property crimes. If you look at total property crimes, only 1% of total property crimes result in arrest for those large cities. You know, you go to a CVS or a Walgreens in a lot of these cities and you see them behind glass. People know that that wasn't the case 3 or 4 years ago, but the media wants to try to convince people that it's just their imagination. You'll see all sorts of headlines that say crime is falling, but people seem to think that it's going up. And it's just, I guess I thought maybe the media just didn't understand the numbers to begin with, that there's a difference between reported crime and total crime that's there. But people aren't reporting crimes to the police when they don't think anything's going to happen, when they don't think the guys are going to be arrested and convicted. And so there's been a huge change in the rate that crimes are reported over the last few years. But it's more than that, because I had a piece in the Wall Street Journal that basically went through some of this stuff. So it's the largest newspaper. You'd think they're at least on alert, but they seem to just plow through in terms of making the same claims.
I'll give you anecdotal evidence here. I have been robbed 7 times in my life
We're talking about physically facing
not
the robber.
physically. No, I've been $5,000 to $10,000 worth of property stolen, kind of robbed.
Okay, but is it so? The only reason for asking is the difference between larceny and robbery. Robbery is a robber coming right up to you.
Okay, sorry. What should I use if someone broke into a storage trailer and took out
Well, it could be burglary burglary or larceny type
okay.
things.
So that I've never come face to face with the person that did it. I never reported any of those. I have not, because why?
You didn't have insurance to cover it?
One of the times I had insurance that covered things, but I didn't think there was any chance whatsoever.
Right, sure. That'd be recovered.
That they would recover it, that they would put that even the police would put, they're dealing with violent crimes and they, people that need help right now. Right. How are they going to spend time looking for my guitar? The guy that got stolen, And so I'm one of those people who has dealt with that and then not told the police afterwards.
Yeah, well, no, that's very typical. I mean, what you find is that violent crimes are more likely to get reported than property crimes are. But as I was just saying a minute ago, if you were living in a large city, only 1% of total property crimes, reported, unreported, result in arrest. So your type of attitude about, and it's gotten even worse because in the past, if you had a burglary or a larceny and you called the police, they'd send out a police car and they'd take a report. Now, in many parts of the country, because of the reduction in the number of police officers that they'll ask you, is it an emergency? Is the criminal there right now committing the crime? And if it's not, they say, okay, well, you can come down to the police station now and fill out a report, but there's no guarantee anything's going to happen. And so they've made it more costly for you to report, because it takes time to go down to the police station. And now you're told it's even lower probability that anything's going to happen than before. Yeah. So there's at least some people now who are going to be discouraged. And that's another reason why there's problems with the FBI data, because so the National Crime Victimization Data has both total and reported and unreported, that it breaks it down. And this is like the first time that the FBI reported crime data is going in opposite directions from the National Crime Victimization Data on reported crimes. So in 2022, well, as I was saying, the FBI showed a 2% drop in reported crimes. The National Crime Victimization Data showed a 29% increase in reported crimes. And so part of what's happening, I think, is that people think that if they call 911, that's reporting the crime, but it doesn't actually count until a police report is filled out, and before they'd send out a cop car to you, but now you have to go in many times. And so people say, well, I called in, I reported it, and there are other reasons to go into, but it's just...
The other thing with the FBI database, I read that isn't it voluntary for these cities to report anyway, and you don't particularly know how many of them or
we do.
What cities.
But it's gone down. It's changed a lot. No, you're bringing up an important point, and that is, in 2021, the Biden administration changed the reporting process that goes on. In 2022, for example, 32% of police departments were not reporting data. In 2020, it was like 97% reported. So that's a huge change. And then not only did 32% not report any data, another 24% only partially reported data. So that's less than half of the police departments were giving complete data to the FBI.
Yeah. See, when I hear that, I just say, well, when I hear the report from the FBI, I don't really care what it says because it's so incomplete. Why would I don't put any weight on what they say because I can't trust the data set in the first place.
Right.
And so, why does anyone pay attention to it? I think we know why the media pays attention to it.
Well, the media pays attention to it for a couple reasons. One is, I think, and the reason why they just stick with it is that they want the Biden administration to look better than it is, the Democrats to look better. And also, I think there's a lot of concern about illegal aliens coming into the country, this huge surge in crime. And so I think they want to say, well, crime's falling, so it's not much of an issue. You don't need to worry about that.
So I don't know if you know any data on this. I'll just ask you a question because I don't know the answer. Immigrants, illegal aliens, you hear a lot about crimes that they commit. Is that proportional? Is it disproportional? They commit more crimes, less crimes. I just didn't know if you know any of the statistics.
Sure. Well, the thing is, it's very hard to get data on that because it's just taboo for people to keep track of those things. I mean, it should be people in prison. You should be able to go and identify whether the people in your prison are American citizens or not. But I had gotten some data some years ago for Arizona when they, for a time period, collected data. They were like the only state that did. And what you found is that illegal aliens were way overrepresented for violent crimes relative to their share of the populations that were there. But you have legal resident aliens and illegal resident aliens. And legal resident aliens, the people who came into the country legally, they actually look to be much more law-abiding than the general American citizen. But the people who came in illegally tend to be committing crimes. And so what happens often is studies will mix those two groups together and they'll say, look, on average, there's like no difference between them and Americans. But, it's in any case, right now you have places like Venezuela that have released lots of inmates from jails and prisons that are there and sending those across, and they won't take them back. And, you should at least be able to check the people that come in. I mean, even if there are illegals that are good, at least there should be some obvious people. We had a guy from Brazil who had murdered 10 people in Brazil. He escaped prison there, came up, and they caught him in New Hampshire after he murdered somebody else up there. And you have this guy from El Salvador who murdered the woman in Maryland. I believe he had committed a murder in El Salvador beforehand. You'd like to think you're at least trying to screen the people that are coming into the country beforehand. So before we get out of here, I want to ask about a solution to this because if crime is in fact going up, as the actual data might suggest, is that a policing problem? Is this a bad economy? Is it how do you pinpoint what the problem is here and the solution for it? Well, I don't think it's really rocket science that's going on. If you want to reduce crime, you have to make it risky for criminals to commit crime. And we've had all sorts of things going on. We've had the defund the police movement that goes on. You've changed the rules for policing. And so you've had a lot of retirements from policing. But, for a couple of years, you had cuts to the number of police. New York City cut its police budget by $1 billion a year in 2020. You had Chicago cutting the number of police officers by 400. But it's worse than that because you've had all these retirements. And so even in the last year or so, when you've been hiring more police, somebody who's been on the job for 6 months or a year doesn't really replace somebody who had been a police officer for 15 years, who may have retired. Some of the rules that you have, like in Chicago, every time an officer talks to somebody, they have to fill out 2 legal pages of forms. That takes, on average, an hour for them to do that. So you talk to 4 people in the morning, you've effectively removed that police officer from working during the afternoon. In California now, if you pull somebody over for a traffic stop because they've run a stop sign or speeding, you have to fill out forms that take on average about 45 minutes for you to do. And they're bizarre things they ask. They ask you, what was the sexual orientation of the person you pulled over?
That's relevant.
Well, they want to make sure, supposedly, that they're not discriminating against people. But the thing is, the officer's not even allowed to ask what the sexual orientation of the person is.
Yeah.
And so they're just supposed to guess. And it's not like when the car is going by, maybe with tinted windows, you can say, oh, that person's gay, I'm going to pull him over.
Okay. Wow, I didn't know about that. Are they making these rules to disincentivize officers from interacting with anyone?
Well, that's not the point of doing it, I don't think. I mean, maybe in the back of their minds, but explicitly the reason why they're doing it is to ensure no discrimination's occurring. But it's just a joke. And I think your point is right, because what you seem to happen is that when they put these rules, the number of traffic stops seem to have plummeted. And if you believe that people running stop signs are more likely to result in more accidents, more people are likely to run stop signs if you're not worried about somebody catching you.
Yeah.
But so you got policing broadly, but you also have these district attorneys in many parts of the country, these Soros district attorneys. Alvin Bragg in Manhattan, who's been in the news a lot, he's 60% of felonies he's reduced the penalties for, and he's not prosecuting people. You've had bail reform in many parts of the country. So you have examples, like I was reading a case recently in Detroit where a guy had murdered 3 people. He was released on $10,000 bail, which meant he had to put up $1,000. And then he murders somebody else when he's out. So, but the thing is, he's already facing 3 life sentences.
Yeah.
Okay, you said, well, it's his 4th life. If you threaten to take away his 4th life, that will stop him from doing anything
Very
more.
concerned about that one.
Right,
yeah.
and
yeah, that'll work. That'll work for sure. Well, John, this has been a really good conversation. I'd love to have you back on the show again sometime. Next time we're at the same event or a call or something like that. That'd be great. I love going through statistics and all that, as I said at the beginning. So very interesting stuff. But where can people go to get more of this information?
All this is on our website at crimeresearch.org, crimeresearch.org.
Okay.
So
crimeresearch.org. I'm going to make sure I save that in my bookmarks also, because I bet I can use it when we're talking about stuff on the podcast sometimes. So,
well, I hope so.
Yeah.
And we've only touched, we have all sorts of stuff on gun control and policing and vote fraud and all sorts of other topics that we have. So,
all right. Well, it's been really great meeting you,
John.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Great interview. Absolutely love talking to that guy. I think we could talk for a lot longer. Let me know what you think. Go to Good AM Liberty on X and let us know what you think about that interview. And I think Dr. John Live had a lot of really good points, clearly has a lot of knowledge on the issues, and you guys should look up the Crime Prevention Research Center because they got a lot of good data like that on their website that you can use to counter the narrative and the people repeating that narrative when you encounter them online. All right, I got another good interview coming up with Mark Jamis, who took the case all the way to the Supreme Court and won and changed my mom's life. Coming right up.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 13th through the 16th for the 8th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which has sold out in recent years. Fork Fest happens the weekend before the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 13th through the 16th. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the ForkFest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the ForkFest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 13th through the 16th. forkfest.party.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Israel has confirmed it was behind the missile strike on Lebanon's capital, Beirut. Its military says it was a targeted strike against the Hezbollah commander who carried out the attack at the weekend on the Golan Heights that hit a soccer pitch. Hezbollah denied involvement in that strike, which killed 12 children and teenagers. Everson Sarah Coates reports from Tel Aviv.
This Israeli strike, a targeted strike, was going after the chief of staff of Hassan Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah. Now, according to a number of security sources on the ground in the southern suburbs of Beirut, where that strike happened just a couple of hours ago, this man, Fouad Shahar, he actually did, according to security sources, survive this attempt on his life. But we are hearing that there have been a couple of fatalities and a number of other people wounded. Now, the Israeli Defense Forces have put out a statement saying it was targeted on this commander and that he was responsible for the rocket attack in the Golan Heights on Majd al-Shams, and that happened late Saturday.
The acting Secret Service director has called the attempted assassination of former US President Donald Trump a failure on multiple levels. Roland Rowe was testifying before Congress a week after the agency's director resigned. Republican and Democratic lawmakers grilled Rowe on the failings that led up to the shooting. He spoke about those and detailed actions the agency is now taking as it investigates what went wrong.
The attempted assassination of former President Donald J. Trump on Saturday, July 13th, 2024, in Butler, Pennsylvania, was a failure on multiple levels. I join you and all Americans in condemning the horrific assault on former President Trump, Corey Comparator, James Copenhaver, and David Dutch. And I extend my deepest sympathies to the Comparator family and my sincere wishes for Mr. Copenhaver and Mr. Dutch's continued recovery.
Violent protests are continuing in Venezuela following Sunday's disputed election result. Police have fired tear gas and rubber bullets at people demonstrating against President Nicolas Maduro, who claimed victory. The opposition claims its candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, won by a large margin. Everson's Mary Trini Mena reports from Caracas.
We are expecting more demonstrations today from both government supporters and opposition supporters. The government says they will be in the streets defending their victory because they believe Nicolás Maduro won the election. The opposition is claiming that they have the vote that Edmundo Gonzalez won the presidential election. So we have right now a complex situation in the country. The situation has been escalating over the past 24 hours with clashes with police forces.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
What's up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another fantastic episode of Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live Network, coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee. Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash with fees of less than a penny per transaction. Dash is made for spending. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol and the multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. You can learn more at dash.org. That's dash.org. As you know, we here at Liberty Night are also called Good Morning Liberty during the day, every single day of the week on your favorite podcast app. And we recently had the pleasure of talking to Mr. Mark Janus, who took a union case all the way to the Supreme Court and won. Changed my mom's life, which I will thank him for in this interview. What's up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another episode of Good Morning Liberty. We are at Freedom Fest in Las Vegas, Nevada. My name is Nate Thurston, sitting down with Mark Janus of the Liberty Justice Center and Amanda Griffiths, who's newly anointed co-host of Good Morning Liberty. Also,
I'm a scab, really.
Also a contributor for Young Voices as well. Okay, so for our audience, if they don't know who you are, you're famous for a very important Supreme Court decision. I would call it the Janus decision. Okay, so why don't you tell everyone a little bit about that?
Well, back in a number of years ago, I worked for the state of Illinois as a child support specialist. And on my first day on the job, when you're doing your HR intake and you're signing all your tax forms and your health forms and all your other paraphernalia, as I like to call it, nothing was ever told me and advised me about joining a union. And it wasn't until I got my first paycheck about a couple of weeks later, and I saw this deduction line item that said union dues. And I'm going like, well, back the truck up. I mean, I'm not a member of the union. Why am I paying them? And I very quickly learned that under the state of Illinois and the legislature, AFSCME, that's American Federation of State and County Municipal Employees, they had some legislation that got passed that required people that even if they're not a member of the union, they still have to pay dues. And granted, it was maybe only about 90% of what full dues are, but it was still dues nonetheless. Well, I didn't like it. Time passed a bit, and I just got more and more disgusted with the union because of the stances they were taking in policy. They wanted to raise taxes. They were taking other political decisions that I didn't agree with, and advising me that they wanted me to endorse a candidate that I had no business endorsing because of my beliefs and my understandings. So I found the Liberty Justice Center, which is a public interest law firm, and we began a dialogue, and we filed a case in federal court using the First Amendment freedom of association and free speech. Because as I learned, even if you are not a member of the union is still bargaining for you. And they are collectively speaking on your behalf, even though you may not like the amount of dialogue that they put forth. But yet they still represent you, and therefore they put you into that category in general. So we went to Chicago to court, and we promptly lost. Well, this is very encouraging. We then went to the appellate level, and we lost there also. And I'm going, well, this is really going well. We got 2 strikes against us already. But then I was advised that we were going to be going to the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington, which really struck me because I had no idea we were going to go that direction. I figured once we lost at the appellate level, we were pretty much done. Well, fast forward some time period later, and the Supreme Court agrees to hear the case, which is amazing. I mean, that doesn't happen very often. The number of cases that the Supreme Court agrees to hear are very minuscule compared to the amount of filings and the amount of cases that people want them to hear. So we go into the court. They hear the oral arguments. My lead attorney was Bill Messenger with National Right to Work, and my second chair was Jacob Hubert, who is our president right now at Liberty Justice Center. And what a lot of people don't realize about the Supreme Court is, it's more like a debate. The justices will interrupt you as you give your presentation, trying to ask you questions, throw you off your game, whatever the case might be. Oral arguments were over with. Lots of media because it was considered one of the premier cases in that term. So then we go to Washington, D.C. in June. It was the last week of June, which is their last week of their term. And we go into court on a Monday and no decision. So we go back on a Tuesday, no decision. We go back on a Wednesday, no decision. So I feel kind of like I'm Bill Murray, in that movie, but we finally go back on the last day, and they finally, just call the case. And Justice Roberts says, now Justice Alito will read the opinion. Well, as soon as we heard Alito, we knew we had won. And, we were all ecstatic, but, there's a lot of decorum. And it was just absolutely amazing to hear what they said, what they decided, and they actually gave us more than what we asked for. To boil it down, it basically reads that everybody that is a member, or even, I should say a non-member of a public sector union, does not have to pay the agency fees. They just don't have to. And immediately 5.5 million people were automatically eligible and did not have to pay another dime. Now, how well does this work in real life? It doesn't. For the simple reason that, for example, Governor Jerry Brown in California, on that very day, signed legislation that said that if a employee goes to a supervisor and says, hey, I heard about this Janus case, can you tell me anything about it? Well, the supervisors cannot, by law, discuss it. He or she has to then send that employee to the union to find out about it. Well, now what could possibly go wrong there? I mean, going to the union to ask them about my case. The union vilified me. They said that I was going to put them all out of business, and it was going to be the end of the labor movement. But obviously, we know today that that is not the case.
So you mean the union said that by giving workers an alternative, it would put the union out of business? That's correct. A bit damning, isn't it, to them?
Yeah, well, for them it is, from the standpoint that, I look at it that if a union is so benevolent, which they claim they are, why do they have to, in essence, force or try to coerce people to retain their membership and use things like windows and other things to keep people in? If they did such a great job and they, like I said, they were so benevolent, wouldn't people flock to them and want to be members and beat down the door?
And why would they use bureaucracy rather than grassroots tactics as other organizations now do?
Correct. What a lot of people don't realize is that, like in the teachers union and many others, if you want to leave or opt out, if you will, they only give you a 2-week, maybe a 2-week period out of a whole year. So in essence, you're giving up for 50 weeks out of the year your First Amendment rights. Now, that I think is totally unheard of in almost any other situation when it comes to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and especially our First Amendment.
I just wanted to mention, I told you this beforehand, but because you took this all the way to the Supreme Court and won, my mother is one of these people that was affected by the decision. She is a public school teacher in Illinois, and she has decided to opt out and not pay her union dues. And so, first off, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate
thank
that.
you. Yeah, I was
now, the union, forgive me for not knowing all of this, but the union still has to represent the public sector employees
correct,
that work
correct.
at that business, right?
Even if you are not a member of the unions in many cases in the public sector have what they call exclusive bargaining rights, which means that they are the sole representative whether you want them to represent you or not. For example, a number of years ago in Illinois, there was a piece of legislation that was put forth where they tried to say, look, if you're not a member of the union and the union doesn't like that because they vilified non-members, why don't they just let those people negotiate their own contracts and you only represent the people that are dues-paying people? Well, the unions hated it, and they went against that legislation and got it killed. Because although they talk one thing, they're very hypocritical, and they actually do something else. And that's what is so frustrating about them, is because on one side they say one thing, but then their actions speak something totally different.
Right. And that was, again, as we've discussed, the problem. At University of California, you had United Auto Workers representing me exclusively I'm not an auto worker. I don't plan to be. And
ask me why auto workers and building cars has to do with education.
Well, they'll probably be getting paid a lot more than many of us will eventually. But you now go and you provide education to public sector workers, right? You help educate them on what their rights are.
Correct, yeah. June 27th of this year is the 6th year anniversary of the decision. And I'm still out there trying to educate people, trying to spread the word, trying to let people know that they do have what's now known as Janus rights, because it's now considered the Janus decision. Just like, the Brown versus Board of Education is the Brown decision, and many, many others that the Supreme Court has put forth. And we know it's an uphill battle because the unions have multi-million dollars. They put that into the politics. They get their people elected, the politicians they want, and then those politicians vote in the way that the union wants them to vote because they don't want to lose that money and they don't want to lose that amount of cash to put into their campaigns. But what a lot of people also don't realize is that unions, they not only put a lot of money directly into a campaign, but they also do a lot of in-kind contributions, such as the union will pay for the yard sign, or they'll pay for the actual brochure that goes from door to door and people stick in the screen door. They do a lot of boots on the ground, telephone banks, things of that nature, which can amount to additional millions of dollars that go into a campaign. What a lot of people don't realize is back when Trump's first ran before the first term, the people vilified the Koch brothers for all the money they were putting into the campaign. What a lot of people don't realize is that in that campaign, the 3 largest public sector unions were in the top 10 of donors to that campaign on the Democratic side, whereas the Koch brothers were like number 44 on the list. And the unions are always talking about dark money. Okay, the problem is that the unions have more dark money than everybody else combined. And so that's a misnomer. So all we're trying to do is educate people, trying to get them to understand what these unions are doing, how they're getting involved in these radical ways in education and so many other things. That it just is abominable, quite frankly.
So what other cases are you guys involved in right now involving labor?
Well, it's we have a case right now in Chino Valley, California, where there was a school district and the board that said, okay, if a child decides he wants to change a pronoun, that we will notify the parents of what's going on. Well, the AG in California did not like that. Oh no, you're infringing on that child's First Amendment rights, and therefore you have to stop doing that. You have to protect the privacy of the child. Well, what I don't understand, and I'm not a lawyer, but if a child is a minor, isn't the parent still responsible in that regard? You would certainly think so.
Yeah.
You would think so.
Mm-hmm.
But yet the AG in California says no, they don't have to have parental notification in those regards. We also, and I can't even begin to tell you how many cases we have where people have tried to get out of the union, and the union stops them, and we have to send letters of cease and desist, or we just simply have to take them to court. To say, look, under the Janus decision, you have to let them out, because of, the decision that Alito said, because it basically reads that once that decision came down, everybody was out of the union, and you need to opt in. And you have to also understand that you're giving up your First Amendment rights if you join the union.
When a union comes to a worker and says, you need to pay dues, what the proposition that they're making is they're saying, well, it's going to go to strike benefits, it's going to help you. But a lot of this money, correct, is going to political endorsements. It's going to contributions.
Yeah,
is that right?
On average, only 23 cents of every dollar actually goes to actual wage and benefit negotiations.
As well as
the balance of it goes to, office and and backroom sort of things, but the biggest majority of it goes to political contributions to candidates, policies, etc. One of the platforms that the NEA has currently is parental notification, keeping that secret from parents, among other very egregious things. And if you go to the NEA website, it's all right there.
So it's the union that tries to make labor political. It's not the worker that typically wants to do that.
In the decision, Justice Alito said that public sector unions are inherently political, and you can't say it any other way.
So I told you beforehand, I'm not the biggest proponent of unions that you'll ever meet. Okay, I might not be the most anti-union person you'll ever meet either. So I wanted you to help me along in that if you have a counter argument to that idea, because maybe there is something good that I'm missing. Let me also ask you this. When you say a union spends 23 cents of every dollar is going towards actually trying to fight for the workers, the rest of this is our political contributions, office, salaries, whatever else. How is a union able to continue to get away with their public image of being all for the worker, and people still believe this when it seems to be something else? But if you were to flip that and talk about a corporation who only spent this tiny portion of their money towards making better products for people or whatever it was, they would easily be demonized by the media and people on the left and all of that. So how do they keep that image?
Well, the reason they can keep that image is very, very simple. They have the backing of the political establishment, if you want to call it that, whether it be the legislature, the school board, the local city council. All you have to do is look at the current campaign going on for president, and our current president says that he is one of the biggest union supporters in the world. That says it a lot right there. Plus the fact you also have to remember that unions don't always tell the truth. For example, the Chicago Teachers Union, in their bylaws, says that they have to produce an audited financial statement once a year and provide that to the membership. This is now year 4 that they have not done that, even though they've been asked multiple times. What they do in general, if I can even use this analogy, is they treat the rank and file like a mushroom. And we all know how mushrooms are grown. They're kept in the dark and they're fed dung. Mm-hmm. That's how you grow a mushroom. Well, that's how they treat the rank and file.
Or you could use an oak tree also,
you
like Keith was telling us.
Yeah, you could
right.
Yeah, you could
I
do
just
that
want to
too.
make sure, we get all the right facts out there.
Right.
Now, on my somewhat anti-union stance, what would your counter be to that?
Well, my counter is that in some cases a union could be beneficial, but unfortunately, going back to the 20s and 30s, in the early part of the history of the country of the 1900s, unions did a good job. They did fight for workers, and they were able to get a lot of our laws codified and put into statute, such as health care, the 40-hour work week, et cetera, et cetera. So now, since all that is already statute in many, many cases, what do they have left to negotiate for? And what do they have left that they need to try to put forward to make themselves relevant? And that's basically politics.
Well, and they need to continue to sell a narrative where the worker is disempowered. So in a way, they need a corporation that disempowers the worker, or they at least need to create that image.
And it's also from the standpoint too, that they just out and out lie, and they tell people, well, if you're not a member of the union, you're going to lose your pension, you're going to lose your health care. Well, that's extremely bogus, because in probably 99.9% of the cases, your health care and your pension comes from your employer. So what does a union have to do with your pension and your health care? But yet they tell people that and scare them just to keep them in the fold.
You've been asked this before, but with respect to public sector unions in particular, the missing negotiator is, of course, the taxpayer. That's a problem, right?
Yeah, that's a problem because if you're in a private business and you're negotiating with a union, there's a profit and a loss status that goes with negotiating with the union versus the business. And the union recognizes that from the standpoint that if they they over ask and the employer can't provide it, the employer goes out of business, and then all those people lose their jobs. But in the public sector, that doesn't happen because the people that are negotiating with the union are the people that they elected. And they're on, in essence, their political payroll, if you will. So you're right. The taxpayer has no knowledge and is no input on what's being negotiated between those two parties. And as we all know with government, government is considered a bottomless pit. If they run out of money, they raise taxes. Have you ever seen the budget cut in any area? In some cases, in red states, yes, you will see some responsibility. Blue states, forget it.
I can agree with that for sure. So, Amanda, do you have anything else pertaining to, you guys had a panel and all that. I know you know all the specific details. If not, I was just going to try to get information on where people could go look up all your work.
Yeah, if you go to libertyjusticecenter.org, our website, we have a listing of all our cases, press releases, and what we're doing, and how we fight for First Amendment freedoms. We're strictly a pro bono law firm. If we take your case and can do your case, we will not charge you a dime for it. And be fully aware that we can't take every case that people may feel is worthy to be taken care of. We will do our best to try to support you, give you information. Sometimes it could be as simple as a cease and desist letter. Mm-hmm. And once they receive that, we're good and we don't have to go to court. But Liberty Justice Center, we get all our money from donations, and that's how we can operate, and that's how we can help people out as much as we do.
It's absolutely amazing, by the way, because when you think about taking a case all the way to the Supreme Court, it just sounds like something, well, I'll never be able to do that. It doesn't matter if they're infringing on my rights. There's nothing I can do about this. And so the fact that there's people like you guys out there who will take some of these cases pro bono, that just opens up a whole new era here.
Yeah, exactly. Because when I didn't think I had a snowball chance on my case, and there was no possible way I could have afforded to take this to the Supreme Court. I was told it was upwards of 7 figures. I have no idea what it cost, but it wouldn't surprise me. The idea that there are outfits, legal offices out there that will help people, such as myself, I think is absolutely amazing. And they need your support from the standpoint that we can't do it because not everybody has a deep pocket and not everybody can, go to the extent necessary to bring a case to fruition.
Mark, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
It's been an honor to meet you. Pleasure speaking with you.
Thank
Love
you.
to talk again sometime.
Please do. Please do. I have more stories.
All right.
Thank you so much, Mark. It was wonderful to lead the panel with you.
Really great to talk to Mr. Janus. Not every day you have a chance to talk to someone who actually went all the way to the Supreme Court with a case and won. Pretty big deal. So make sure you follow Good Morning Liberty on your favorite podcast app, although you guys just got to hear that before all the people who were on the podcast app did. But there's a lot of other episodes, like 1,311 episodes you can go listen to on your favorite podcast app. We got Dumb Bleep of the Week coming right up.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
The latest episode of Free Talk Live continues with Hour 3 up next after the news here at listen.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Israel has confirmed it was behind the missile strike on Lebanon's capital, Beirut. Its military says it was a targeted strike against the Hezbollah commander who carried out the attack at the weekend on the Golan Heights that hit a soccer pitch. Hezbollah denied involvement in that strike, which killed 12 children and teenagers. FSN Sarah Coates reports from Tel Aviv.
This Israeli strike, a targeted strike, was going after the chief of staff of Hassan Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah. Now, according to a number of security sources on the ground in the southern suburbs of Beirut, where that strike happened just a couple of hours ago, this man, Fuad Shahar, he actually did, according to security sources, survive this attempt on his life. But we are hearing that there have been a couple of fatalities and a number of other people wounded. Now, the Israeli Defense Forces have put out a statement saying it was targeted on this commander and that he was responsible for the rocket attack in the Golan Heights on Majd al-Shams, and that happened late Saturday.
The acting Secret Service director has called the attempted assassination of former US President Donald Trump a failure on multiple levels. Roland Rowe was testifying before Congress a week after the agency's director resigned. Republican and Democratic lawmakers grilled Rowe on the failings that led up to the shooting. He spoke about those and detailed actions the agency is now taking as it investigates what went wrong.
The attempted assassination of former President Donald J. Trump on Saturday, July 13th, 2024, in Butler, Pennsylvania, was a failure on multiple levels. I join you and all Americans in condemning the horrific assault on former President Trump, Corey Comparator, James Copenhaver, and David Dutch. And I extend my deepest sympathies to the Comparator family and my sincere wishes for Mr. Copenhaver and Mr. Dutch's continued recovery.
Violent protests are continuing in Venezuela following Sunday's disputed election result. Police have fired tear gas and rubber bullets at people demonstrating against President Nicolas Maduro, who claimed victory. The opposition claims its candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, won by a large margin. FSN's Mary Trini Mena reports from Caracas.
We are expecting more demonstrations today from both government supporters and opposition supporters. The government says they will be in the streets defending their victory because they believe Nicolás Maduro won the election. The opposition is claiming that they have the vote that Edmundo Gonzalez won the presidential election. So we have right now a complex situation in the country. The situation has been escalating over the past 24 hours with clashes with police forces.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. The US Federal Reserve could soon signal when it's likely to bring down borrowing costs in the United States. The central bank's two-day meeting is underway, with market watchers looking for signs that a rate reduction is on the cards. FSN's Sally Patterson reports from New York.
Markets are widely expecting interest rates to be left unchanged by the Federal Reserve this week. But there's hope the central bank will offer hints about when rates might be cut and how many times that'll happen this year. Most analysts suspect that reduction will begin in September as inflation continues to come down. The Fed's preferred inflation measure, the PCE, continued to gradually cool overall in June. In recent months, Fed Chair Jerome Powell has acknowledged measures to bring down inflation to the central bank's 2% target are working, but says there's still more to do.
UK authorities say 3 children were killed and 9 were injured by a man with a knife in an attack in Southport, northwest England on Monday. 5 of the children remain in a critical condition, as well as 2 adults. Merseyside Police says it believes the injured adults were bravely trying to protect the children from being attacked. FSN Simon Gaitan reports.
The children were attending a Taylor Swift-themed yoga dance workshop for kids aged 6 to 11 when a teenager entered the building and stabbed them. The regional police force says it's still making inquiries to attempt to find a motive for what it's calling a tragic incident, but it's not being treated as terror-related. The 17-year-old who was arrested at the scene by armed police was found with a knife, which he had used to stab children and 2 adults. He was living near the seaside town of Southport, near the city of Liverpool in England's northwest. Taylor Swift reacted to the news on Tuesday, saying she was at a complete loss in a post on Instagram. Southport's MP called the attack the worst atrocity in living memory to affect the area.
That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
The manatee is a solitary creature, drifting along in the warm, peaceful shallows. They are not usually held in a small glass enclosure with 3 other male manatees hell-bent on the violent forced sex that I, for real, saw with my own eyes while alone one night at SeaWorld, San Diego. A distant relative of the elephant, the manatee has a prehensile upper lip which it uses to gather food. It also has a large penis. Classified as endangered, human boaters often cause serious wounds to manatees' flippers, rendering it difficult for this one poor little rescue manatee to escape a large male manatee intent on unwanted anal intercourse. One needed not to look in that little manatee victim's cold, soul-sapped eyes to know this was not the first time this had happened, nor would it be the last.
This is the Onion News Network.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
What's up, everyone? This is Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live network. And it's time for Dumb Bleep of the Week. That's where we count down the dumbest things from the previous week. In the live group, the Fed Haters Club votes on them. Join GML.com if you want to join that. Well, let's talk about our president, Joe Biden, in his Oval Office address. He said he's the first president this century to report that the United States is not at war anywhere in the world.
I will keep working to ensure America remains strong and secure and the leader of the free world. I'm the first president in this century to report to the American people that the United States is not at war anywhere in the world. We'll keep rallying a coalition of proud nations to stop Putin from taking over Ukraine and doing more damage. We'll keep NATO stronger, and I'll make it more powerful and more united.
I like how he says that we're not at war anywhere in the world, and then he immediately follows up with a war that we're basically in. Spent a couple $100 billion, funding other people who aren't American citizens to fight a war that feels like we're at war. There's other things going on as well. I wanted to see what other people had to say about this. So of course, I went to antiwar.com, and on their page, we have on Wednesday night, President Biden falsely claimed in an address to the nation that the U.S. was not at war. About a half hour before Biden delivered his address, U.S. Central Command announced that it launched new strikes targeting the Houthis in Yemen. Since January, the U.S. has carried out hundreds of strikes in Yemen as part of a new war that has not been authorized by Congress. U.S. naval commanders have half an hour before this speech. We were launching strikes heading Yemen. Feels like a war, but it's not declared by Congress. Back in April, U.S. military officials said the munitions used in the Red Sea and other bombings Biden ordered in Iraq and Syria since October 7th had cost the U.S. about $1 billion, which is like nothing. Okay, that's fine. The U.S. has also been involved in combat operations against ISIS remnants in Iraq and Syria. Earlier this month, CENTCOM said it had been involved in 196 partnered operations in both countries in the first half of 2024. That's 196 operations in 2024. U.S. troops deployed in Syria are not welcomed by the government, making it an illegal military occupation. At the end of 2023, in the beginning of this year, the U.S. was fighting Shia militias based in Iraq that began targeting U.S. bases in response to the U.S. support for the Israeli onslaught in Gaza. In January, 3 U.S. troops were killed in a drone attack on Tower 22, a secretive base in Jordan. The U.S. launched multiple rounds of airstrikes against Shia militias, which are part of Iraq's security forces. The bombings enraged the Iraqi government, which asked the U.S. to withdraw, and now the two sides are negotiating the future of the U.S. presence. The U.S. has also bombed Somalia multiple times this year to support the Mogadishu-based government against al-Shabaab. The U.S. also launched an airstrike that it said targeted ISIS in Somalia back in May. But we're not at war. He's the first president this century. Now, he says he's the first president this century to announce to the American people that we're not at war. I guess that's true. None of the other American presidents have announced that we weren't at war. He didn't say anything about us actually not being at war. He just said he was the first guy to announce it. He declared it. And he's the first one to do that this century. So fact check, true. Good job. That's dumb bleep number 2. How about dumb bleep number 3? Here we go. The Secret Service, who's had a heck of a couple weeks recently, are letting President Trump know that, number 1, he shouldn't ride in any convertibles through Dallas, and number 2, he shouldn't hold any outdoor rallies. This is an organization that's got a $3 to $4 billion budget, thousands of agents out there. Trump is a former president and tied to leading to sometimes basically dead even to be the next president. And the Secret Service says you shouldn't talk to people outside. Just going to tell you straight up, don't talk to people outside. Okay? I know, sort of our job, but don't go outdoors. We're the Secret Service. Okay, thank you.
And just breaking moments ago, Brett, I want to tell you that the Secret Service is apparently now telling or asking the Trump campaign to stop doing their rallies outdoors. This is reporting from the Washington Post, just breaking in the last couple of minutes here. I can tell you that I asked Don Jr. about that at the RNC last week, if he was going to encourage his father to stop holding rallies outdoors. He said that his father would not like that at all. He loves those outdoor rallies. So we're still trying to work this story right now, but that's coming from the Washington Post. The Secret Service is now encouraging the Trump campaign to stop doing those outdoor rallies.
This is really weird to me because they're like, hey, we're not going to do our job. So, proceed at your own risk. I know it's our job. It's like the whole thing that we're supposed to do. But just, don't go outside. Don't do rallies outdoors, especially not where there's super sloped roofs involved. You don't want to do that at all. Yeah, that's sort of weird. Now that I have seen online that they're pretty good at covering high school gymnasiums. And it looks like that's where Kamala is going to be spending a lot of time because she can fill those up like 2/3 of the way. And so that's where they're going to be. That's where they're going to be focusing all of their attention. They got those high school gyms covered, locked down. Both of the entrances and exits are covered right now. Okay, that's dumb bleep number 3. Let's move on to number 4. We're moving pretty quick, but dumb bleep number 10 has got like 20 slides in it. So let's move on to number 4. Dumb bleep number 5 is none other than Donald Trump. That's right, because as I told you in dumb bleep number 4, there were in fact people who burned. Is burnt a word or is it just burned? I don't know. Who knows? From the South, man. Burned U.S. flags, or at least one U.S. flag was harmed in the process. Okay. I happen to think that you shouldn't go to prison if you burn a U.S. flag. Maybe you could say it's disrespectful if you want to say that. I guess the American flag at times represents everyone who has ever died for America, unless the only time that it's okay to desecrate a U.S. flag is if it's on a T-shirt that you're ripping apart to show that you're wearing a Trump Vance T-shirt underneath it. That's okay. I'm not sure if that shirt was burned afterwards. In that moment, the flag did not represent every single person who had ever died for the United States of America. That was okay. But burning it, you don't want to burn it, okay? Here's President Trump saying what should happen to people who burn the flag.
You should get a 1-year jail sentence if you do anything to desecrate the American flag. Now, people will say, oh, it's unconstitutional. Those are stupid people. Those are stupid people that say that. We have to work in Congress to get a 1-year jail sentence where they're allowed to stomp on the flag and put lighter fluid on the flag and set it afire. And when you're allowed to do that, you get a 1-year jail sentence and you'll never see it again. And all over the world, Putin and President Xi of China, all over the world, they're watching this. Kim Jong-un, he looks at us like we're a bunch of babies. You should...
I know that some people would say that that's unconstitutional, but the fact of the matter is those people are stupid. According to this freedom-loving guy, Donald Trump, who's running for president right now to restore the vision of the Founding Fathers. Of course, burning the flag in protest. 1 year, the government that you're protesting should be able to put you in prison for 1 year because you burned a representation of the government that you bought at Walmart in their little end cap display thing for $10. And if you set that product, it was probably made in China. If you set that product on fire, boom, the government can hold you in prison for 1 year and we'll never see that again. Constitutional? You idiot. Who cares? Who cares if it's constitutional? This is really dumb, guys. This is super dumb. As we've been talking about this week, the really sad part about this election is that the guy running on the Republican side doesn't really have any principles. And I don't even know if Trump really cares about this. Let's not blame it all on Trump. He's saying things that he thinks his supporters want to hear. And that is dumb as well. If his supporters feel the same way, I think you should be able to burn a piece of cloth. All right? I do. That is officially my stance. Am I saying to do it? No, I'm not saying to do it. But should you be put in prison for a year for burning a piece of cloth you bought for $10 down at Walmart made in China? Come on, man. Come on. That's dumb bleep number 5. Let's move on to dumb bleep number 6. Another thing we've mentioned this week. It deserves its own dumb bleep, and that is the fact. Have you thought about it? Turns out Donald Trump is too old to be the president. Too old. It's dangerous. People on the left right now letting me know this is dangerous. We can't have an old man like this being the president. I know Biden's 81. And he's not running because he's senile and all that. That's fine. He doesn't need to actually resign or anything. But this is dangerous. Trump is 78, I think, something like that, 77 or 8, and he's too old. No lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, who mostly just lies. Says Republicans wanted to talk about age. Let's talk about age, and now they're comparing picture of Donald Trump to a picture of the spry 59-year-old Kamala Harris. Plenty of time left. You know, that's still young, especially by politician standards. That's actually fairly young. She's definitely on the younger side for sure. Mehdi Hasan, the truth teller himself, Mehdi Hasan, says Donald Trump is too old to be president. He's retweeting E. Jean Carroll, who says suddenly he's looking very, very old. It's just very interesting how quickly this happened. It's not that Trump's not old. I'm not sitting here arguing that Trump isn't old. I'm not arguing that he doesn't have his partially senile days. Sure, he does sometimes. Okay, he is old. All right. Yes, that is the woman who said he raped her, E. Jean Carroll. So I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that he's not old and he's not too old and that we shouldn't put a cap on how old a person can be to be the president. What I'm saying is I'm sick of the hypocrisy and the lies, because before June 27th, which is when that debate was, Joe Biden was fine. In fact, you saw videos of him doing stupid stuff, senile old man stuff. Those were cheap fakes. Those are deep fakes. This was misinformation getting put out there by the right. Biden isn't too old. He's cogent. He's sharp. He's focused. Most cogent I've ever seen him. All right. Now that Biden dropped out, and it's not because of his age, by the way, because he can't say that, but he dropped out for some reason. I don't know. I don't know what it is. All of a sudden, Trump's too old. It's hypocritical. That's all I'm saying. Washington Post says Trump's age and health are under renewed scrutiny under Biden's exit. Let's see. They're saying Donald Trump is now less transparent about his medical conditions than his former opponent, Joe Biden, because we just had all the information on Joe Biden, his cognitive abilities, his tests, everything. We just knew all that stuff. But now we know that Trump is 78 with a history of heart disease and obesity, according to experts. Has not shared any updated blood work results or other specific information during his campaign to help experts assess his ongoing medical risk. Listen, he's old. He's a 78-year-old, out of shape, old man. He's fairly active, though. Can still play the game of golf. I've seen it. Seen clips of it. He's all right. Well, that's dumb bleep number 6. Trump is now officially too old in the last month. Let's move on to number 7. Don't worry, when we get to number 10, we're going to get 9 and 10. We're going to get bogged down heavy. That's why we're moving pretty quickly. Kamala Harris has released her first official campaign video, and she wants you to know that she chooses freedom. And so this is her campaign video. When you think of Kamala Harris and the policies that she supports, I know you, like me, you think freedom for something. Basically, the only freedom she's going to push for is the freedom to kill babies and the freedom to take other people's money. But anyway, it's freedom nonetheless. Here's the video.
In this election, we each face a question. What kind of country do we want to live in? There are some people who think we should be a country of chaos, of fear, of hate. But us, we choose something different. We choose freedom. Freedom not just to get by, but get ahead. The freedom to be safe from gun violence. The freedom to make decisions about your own body. We choose a future where no child lives in poverty, where we can all afford health care, where no one is above the law. We believe in the promise of America, and we're ready to fight for it. Because when we fight, we win. So join us. Go to KamalaHarris.com and let's get to work.
I'ma keep on running because a winner don't quit on themselves.
I am inspired. Let me tell you what. I feel there's just freedom oozing from all the things she just talked about. Thank you, Clark, for pointing out freedom. Wasn't she a prosecutor? Her literal job as a prosecutor is normally to take freedom away from people. Now, you would hope. I mean, there are people who commit crimes. You know, they lose those freedoms. Sometimes, though, not always the case that they were people who needed to have their freedoms taken away. Do you notice the freedoms that she mentions? It's the freedom to make choices for your own body. So she's talking about abortion. of course. So there's a freedom. That's one of the, you know, just it's the promise of America. Freedom for abortion. Freedom to not live in poverty, which is the freedom to put a gun to someone else's head and take money from them and use it for things that don't even reduce poverty and just create more inflation and harder times for everyone. We're still living through that right now, by the way. She's been the vice president throughout historic highs of inflation. Very historic, considering that the highs of inflation back in the 70s that they're comparing it to were calculated using different metrics. So using those same metrics, we had like all-time highs of inflation, probably dating back to the Civil War or something. Anyhow, freedom to not live in poverty, the freedom to have health care, of course, which is yet another freedom to force other people to remove freedom from other people to get their money, to destroy the healthcare system. Of course, she's freedom maybe to, I don't know, have the guns that you want to. If you like your guns, can you keep your guns? That's what I want to know. That's not the case at all. She's out there talking about assault weapons bans. We've seen plenty of that, of course. For instance, here's a clip right here, 10-second clip.
So we want to ban assault weapons, and they want to ban books.
All right. She's down with freedom again. The freedom to not let other people have freedom, and the freedom to have teachers in a position of authority show sexually explicit books to your children while they're getting paid with money that you have the freedom to have the money taken away from you without your consent. Freedom. That's, I mean, seriously, this is like Braveheart right here. She Braveheart. She Braveheart. Okay. So that is, I don't know, that was dumb bleed number 7, the Kamala ad for freedom. Wasn't crazy cringe. So let's get into some cringe. That's this very real, super candid, impromptu phone call. Oh, she looked at her phone. Oh, it's the Obamas. The Obamas are calling me. Do you guys have the cameras rolling? Do you guys have a microphone at their place too, so you can hear what they're saying perfectly? Oh, good. Good. Let's do this super candid, impromptu phone call with the Obamas. It's super real. Everything they do is super real. People were saying that Obama wasn't endorsing her because he didn't support her being the nominee. I don't think that's the case. I think he didn't want to do it when everyone else was doing it, so people would talk about him and there would be more weight placed on his endorsement when it occurred days after, and it was all people would talk about. Give another news cycle right there. If it was just all the same news cycle, it would have been done by now. So now we get another news cycle refresh at the moment. Here we go.
Hello. Hi.
Hey there.
Oh, hi. You're both together. Oh, it's good to hear you both.
I can't have this phone call without saying to my girl Kamala, I am proud of you. This is going to be historic.
We called to say Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office.
Oh, my goodness. Michelle, Brock, this means so much to me. I am looking forward to doing this with the two of you, Doug and I both, and getting out there, being on the road. But most of all, I just want to tell you the words you have spoken and the friendship that you have given over all these years mean more than I can express. So thank you both. It means so much. And we're going to have some fun with this too, aren't we?
I like how they cut off when she started laughing there at the end of the phone call. Even they know about the laugh. See, she started to laugh right there at the end. Boom, it's over. Cut off right there. Super real phone call. Important stuff. Very important stuff. She got this endorsement from the Obamas. Maybe they're going to hit the campaign trail with her. Okay, they're definitely not still running things at all. Let's move on to number 9. We'll get into some more serious stuff. 9 and 10. Take a little bit more time here. I'm old enough to remember long time ago, back in the year of our Lord 2020. And back in the year of our Lord 2020, we had protests. Some might even call them mostly peaceful. Some people, conspiracy theorists, call them riots. Sometimes. Not all the time. Not everyone, of course. Now, Kamala Harris tweeted at one point in time to donate to this thing called the Minnesota Freedom Fund. No doubt they helped bail out some people who maybe shouldn't have been in the position that they were in. We got a whole lot more dumb bleep of the week, and then of course the voting will commence. Who's going to win? Is it Joe Biden? Is it Kamala Harris? Is it the news media? Is it Donald Trump? Find out on the next segment of Liberty at Night. Coming right up.
Among other things, I've been called frugal. I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. Hey, it all adds up, so it makes sense to question every expense now. For instance, can you live without your telephone landline? That bill shows up like clockwork month after month, while you make most of your calls on a smartphone, right? Unless you need what we used to call the phone company for internet access, cut the cord and take a closer look at your credit card bill. What recurring charges can you live without? Apps like Truebill help you track and manage your subscriptions. If you bank with Bank of America, their free Keep the Change feature rounds up your purchases to the next dollar and deposits it into your savings account. It all adds up. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Israel has confirmed it was behind the missile strike on Lebanon's capital, Beirut. Its military says it was a targeted strike against the Hezbollah commander who carried out the attack at the weekend on the Golan Heights that hit a soccer pitch. Hezbollah denied involvement in that strike, which killed 12 children and teenagers. FSN Sarah Coates reports from Tel Aviv.
This Israeli strike, a targeted strike, was going after the chief of staff of Hassan Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah. Now, according to a number of security sources on the ground in the southern suburbs of Beirut, where that strike happened just a couple of hours ago, this man, Fouad Shahar, he actually did, according to security sources, survive this attempt on his life. But we are hearing that there have been a couple of fatalities and a number of other people wounded. Now, the Israeli Defense Forces have put out a statement saying it was targeted on this commander and that he was responsible for the rocket attack in the Golan Heights on Majd al-Shams, and that happened late Saturday.
The acting Secret Service director has called the attempted assassination of former US President Donald Trump a failure on multiple levels. Roland Rowe was testifying before Congress a week after the agency's director resigned. Republican and Democratic lawmakers grilled Rowe on the failings that led up to the shooting. He spoke about those and detailed actions the agency is now taking as it investigates what went wrong.
The attempted assassination of former President Donald J. Trump on Saturday, July 13th, 2024, in Butler, Pennsylvania, was a failure on multiple levels. I join you and all Americans in condemning the horrific assault on former President Trump, Corey Comparator, James Copenhaver, and David Dutch. And I extend my deepest sympathies to the Comparator family and my sincere wishes for Mr. Copenhaver and Mr. Dutch's continued recovery.
Violent protests are continuing in Venezuela following Sunday's disputed election result. Police have fired tear gas and rubber bullets at people demonstrating against President Nicolas Maduro, who claimed victory. The opposition claims its candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, won by a large margin. FSN's Mary Trini Mena reports from Caracas.
We are expecting more demonstrations today from both government supporters and opposition supporters. The government says they will be in the streets defending their victory because they believe Nicolás Maduro won the election. The opposition is claiming that they have the votes that Edmundo Gonzalez won the presidential election. So we have right now a complex situation in the country. The situation has been escalating over the past 24 hours with clashes with police forces.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
This is Liberty Unite with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live Network, and we're in the middle of Dumb Bleep of the Week. This local CBS news station has decided to get in the game of saying dumb stuff online, so that's fine. Trump falsely accuses Harris of donating to the Minnesota Freedom Fund and bailing out dangerous criminals. Now, she got him on a technicality here. Never said that she donated to the Minnesota Freedom Fund. They got Trump on this one. Didn't say she donated. She just posted out a tweet saying that other people should donate to the Minnesota Freedom Fund. And this was on June 1st when she tweeted this, as people were peacefully rioting in Minnesota, as we all know. And so let's get into a little bit more of this. Former President Donald Trump is using a 2022 Minnesota murder case to attack Vice President Kamala Harris. This is another way that they got Trump on this thing. Trump claims Harris helped raise millions and personally donated to a fund that got extra support to bail out protesters in the aftermath of George Floyd's death. Quote, one of the dangerous criminals Kamala helped bail out of jail was Sean Michael Tillman, Trump said at a rally in Charlotte. Quote, you know that name, a repeat offender who, with Harris's help, was set free. He then went on to murder a man on a train platform in St. Paul, Minnesota, shooting him in cold blood 6 times lying on the ground. While parts of Trump's statement are true, that is, that this guy did murder a man in St. Paul after being released from jail, other parts are misleading. And, I would rate them as like half true on this. This occurred 2 years after she told people to donate to this fund. But this fund did pay this guy's bail. He was released and he killed someone after he was released. So she told people to donate to the fund. 2 years later, this happens. Can you tie that directly to Kamala Harris? Not really. And also, it's the individual people who commit crimes. Okay. And this is 2 years later. They're probably using new money by that time, but she might have escalated, their visibility after that. Yeah. In politics, yes, you can tie it. You can tie this. But coming out and saying that he falsely claimed that she donated to Minnesota Freedom Fund to let out dangerous criminals, I would rate that as a mostly false, half true statement. I want to give a little bit. This is Dumb Bleep number 9 right now, but the remainder of Dumb Bleep number 9 is going to be some advice for the Trump campaign. All right. So you got this guy. What was his name? Sean Michael Tillman. They need to do a good job with ads, and I'm going to show you a couple ads right now. Here's a Trump ad. I think it's their first ad against Kamala. It's San Francisco radical Kamala Harris. Now, of course, they're trying to tie her to California because she should be tied to California. At the same time, you have Gavin Newsom coming out and saying, hey, guys, it's time to clean up all the homeless encampments. Just all of a sudden, completely coincidental. Here's this ad, and I'm going to show you a couple other ads afterwards. This is the one from Trump.
I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. You're considered the most liberal United States senator. Actually, the nonpartisan GovTrack has rated you as the most liberal senator.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
We are going to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. I am in favor of saying that we're not going to treat people who are undocumented and cross borders criminals. That's correct. That is correct.
A lot of the signs at the rally you just held were people standing there saying, abolish ICE.
Yeah.
Is that a position that you agree with?
We need to probably think about starting from scratch.
So you support giving universal health care, Medicare for all to people who are in this country illegally?
I am opposed to any policy that would deny in our country any human being public health, period.
Are you for defunding the police?
How are you defining defund the police? It's actually wrong and backward to think that more police officers will create more safety. We need to get rid of money bail.
Convicted, in prison, like the Boston Marathon bomber, on death row, people who are convicted of sexual assault, they should be able to vote?
I think we should have that conversation. I am prepared to get rid of the filibuster to pass a Green New Deal. I have always supported Medicare for all. I was very happy to sign on to Bernie's bill, and I give Bernie, frankly, a lot of credit. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
Do you ban plastic straws?
I think we should.
Okay, that's a fine ad. Some good points in there. I think stuff like that is going to work for a lot of people. But there are some specific cases that need to be brought up, and they need to make a different kind of ad. For instance, there's this guy, Kevin Cooper, guy who's still in prison, a death row inmate who was trying to get advanced DNA testing to prove his innocence. Kamala Harris was originally against that as the AG of California. Later, because of political pressure, she decided to be in favor of it. That's one. There's the case of George Gage that we talked about. There's also stuff with the border. Now, we'll get on to the border for number 10. There's stuff with the border where people came across and then they got murdered, raped and murdered. You guys have heard the cases. And they need to make some more personalized ads, if those people would agree to it, of course. I'm going to show you a couple examples. Here's an example of an ad that won an election, probably. Here's a good example. Bush and Dukakis on crime. This is the kind of thing they need to do. And if I were running the Trump campaign right now, or I had close friends that were involved in that, I would make a replica of this ad, the same quality, the same 80s coloring and everything. And I would make a replica of this ad, or I would do it. And I would do it with some of the new cases, people coming across the border, some of the people that she prosecuted, some of the innocent people that she tried to keep in prison, people she tried to keep in prison past their sentences, things like that, even though the California Supreme Court was telling her to let people out. And they're like, no, we don't let anyone out. You know, they're good workers. So what are you going to do?
Bush
Freedom.
and Dukakis on crime.
Here's an
supports
example.
The death penalty for first-degree murderers. Dukakis not only opposes the death penalty, he allowed first-degree murderers to have weekend passes from prison. One was Willie Horton, who murdered a boy in a robbery, stabbing him 19 times. Despite a life sentence, Horton received 10 weekend passes from prison. Horton fled, kidnapped a young couple, stabbing the man and repeatedly raping his girlfriend. Weekend prison passes. Dukakis on crime.
They need to literally make a replica of this ad and fill it with one of the news stories. I've seen this ad. I mean, I don't remember anything about this presidential campaign. It was in 88. I was born in 87. So I don't remember seeing this ad on TV, but I bet you my parents do. I've seen it played a bunch in movies before. You got a movie set in that time frame and you see this ad come on there. This is a big ad. There's another one as well. They can make more ads like this, and they need to make them look like this because it's going to draw that nostalgic feel for people that are Republicans. I think it's a good idea.
Mike Dukakis and Willie Horton changed our lives forever. He was serving a life term without the possibility for parole when Governor Dukakis gave him a few days off. Horton broke into our home. For 12 hours, I was beaten, slashed, and terrorized. My wife, Angie, was brutally raped. When his liberal experiment failed, Dukakis simply looked away. He also vetoed the death penalty bill. Regardless of the election, we worry that people don't know enough about Mike Dukakis.
Quick, simple, concise, to the point. And there are plenty of stories you could tell about her time as a prosecutor or her time as the border czar. Yes, I said it. Even though that's not an actual position that exists in the United States government, that's the kind of thing that they should do. And with that, the last part of that was not really dumb. That's just some advice for the Trump campaign. All right, let's move on to number 10. Now we're going to talk about the border. Not going to start off with the border czar part. We have one little thing happening right now, which is someone saying the border crossings are lower today than when the previous administration left office. That's Biden saying that. This guy says that that's true. Illegal border crossings are at the lowest level since the fall of 2020. As someone who likes looking at data, comparing and doing all kinds of statistical analysis, stuff like that, it is since the fall of 2020. The bad part about this is that the number kept going down. So the actual lowest time was like around January of 2021, because it just kept going down. So now they're saying the lowest since Trump was president, but it kept going down afterwards. So that's an important part. Doesn't stop Eric Swalwell, Representative Eric Swalwell, from saying that we can't go back to Trump's border crisis now that they have 1 month where it's at one of the levels seen during Trump's presidency, allegedly, as long as you don't count everyone. That's what they're saying. It's actually the lowest was when Joe Biden took office in 2021. They had 84,000 migrants in June, And I believe it was 97,000 in January 2021. That's confirmed by the CPB. All these people comparing to January 2021. Why are we talking about the border right now? Because we had this ridiculous thing with this border czar scenario. And I've got a few different things we're going to use to talk about that. First off, you just look at the numbers on the border. This is not a conversation about me being for or against immigration, nothing like that. I'm for or against lying or being hypocrites. I'm going to officially come out against that. And so that's what I'm talking about. This is not a debate about the border and whether or not we should have open borders or a wall or whatever. This is just people lying about numbers. And it's pretty freaking annoying when you just look at the CPB border numbers and have a guy like Eric Swalwell say, oh, we can't go back to Trump's border crisis. Look at the numbers right here. You see the bars? If you're watching, maybe you're watching on Spotify or you're watching on YouTube. Yeah, it's different. The left side, those are Trump's numbers. The right side, those are Biden's numbers. Okay. Now let's talk about the border czar thing. We'll start off with a couple videos from MRC. I think that's the Media Research Center. How they talked about Kamala in the context of a border czar position before, when Biden was still the nominee, presumptive nominee, and now, all of a sudden, this week, they're going to show you a comparison between those two things.
Quote unquote border czar. Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
Meantime, Vice President and border czar Kamala Harris facing some backlash.
What he said about Harris and immigration was not true. She was never appointed border czar.
And this will be her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border region since she was appointed as the border czar by President Biden.
People gonna have to counter the misinformation. You already hear folks talking about the border czar. She wasn't the border czar.
President Biden tapped Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, to be the border czar.
Now, she wasn't the border czar. That's what Republicans labeled her.
They were very critical of Kamala Harris, especially in her role as border czar.
Now what she's up against is folks lying about her border record, calling her a border czar.
Kamala Harris, who was appointed as the border czar.
The Biden team didn't declare her the border czar. They wanted her to work on kind of the root causes of immigration.
There has been so much criticism against Kamala Harris. You know, she was the border czar.
Calling her sort of the border czar, which wasn't necessarily the case.
So the border, if they weren't planning to address it in a major way, do not make her your border czar. She met with some of the Northern Triangle countries, but nothing has effectively changed.
Okay, good job, MRC, putting all that stuff together. It is a fact check false. She was not the border czar because that's not a position that exists inside of the U.S. government. We're not Russia, but that is in fact what they were calling people. And let's just show a little bit more. They seem to have some talking points that maybe, just maybe, went out to the media. And by they, I mean DNC talking points. So this is another MRC video where they show these specific talking points from the DNC, and then seemingly the media just using the talking points list. I don't know. You do the math.
She was never actually border czar.
Border czar, which was not something that was formally conveyed upon her.
She's been labeled incorrectly by some members of the right as the border czar. Republicans named her the border czar.
Republicans have always exaggerated what her job was at the border.
Republicans, again, have labeled her the border czar.
But that's not exactly what President Biden asked her to do.
She was never put in charge of the border.
That wasn't actually her task.
Not to secure it, but to address the underlying roots of migration. She was charged with leading the administration's efforts to address the root causes of migration.
The root causes of migration to the U.S.
The root causes.
Root causes.
Root causes.
The root causes.
Root causes
of immigration.
We also want to point out that right now apprehension numbers continue to decrease in our country, especially over the last few months.
And I just want to note that border crossings have been going down.
And illegal border crossings are lower right now.
Migrant crossings continue to drop.
Border crossings are way down.
Border crossings are down.
Once again, good job, MRC. I don't know how, did they just record all the news? They just record all the news. They have it all dictated down. They can just go and look up every single thing that's ever on the news. It's pretty crazy. It's got to be pretty much what they're doing. Well, let's get a little bit further into the border czar gate right quick with Peter Doocy, Fox News' Peter Doocy confronting KJP about that leaked DNC talking points list. She's going to answer the question directly and not deflect whatsoever.
Democrats on Capitol Hill are being handed this card with talking points about the vice president and the border. Do you know who's handing this out?
I have no idea. You probably should ask her campaign.
So the first one says Vice President Harris was never appointed border czar. There's never been such a position. It doesn't exist. Why are Democrats so sensitive about the vice president and the border?
Why are Republicans so sensitive about actually not owning up to them getting in the way of a border deal? Why? Why won't they own up to that? Why won't they own up to the last president told them not to move forward? It was a bipartisan deal on just right there, available to them, and they voted twice against it. Twice against it. Why are they so sensitive to moving forward and actually dealing on an issue that majority of
I think personally, once again, not really giving my opinion on the border, I think they didn't want to officially codify into law allowing millions of people illegally to come into the country before anything was done about the border and closing anything down. I think they didn't want to actually enshrine into law that 1 to 2 million people illegally was okay, and then they would shut down the border after that. That's just me. It could just be that they wanted to pin this on Biden and have it as an election talking point. Hey, that's entirely possible. But let's get on to someone else when it comes to the border czar fiasco, and that's Axios. I'm sure you guys have all seen this one going around. Recent post from them says the Trump campaign and Republicans have tagged Harris repeatedly with the border czar title, which she never actually had. It's interesting because when you go to a post, an article from Axios from March of 2021, Axios says that Harris was appointed by Biden as border czar. Now, border czar is not capitalized, which means it's not an official title, I guess, but they did report that she was appointed by Biden as the border czar. Okay, that's interesting. Inside of this article where they say that Republicans are falsely claiming she's a border czar, I found something else that they're doing a little sleight of hand on right now. You tell me. I noticed something. Maybe this is a thing, maybe it's not. I haven't seen anyone mention this yet. When they say in March 2021, Biden tapped Harris to lead the administration's coordination, and previously Axios called that border czar, tapped Harris to lead the administration's coordination with Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, which were key sources of migration to the border. Okay. But I noticed something missing from that. Because when you see that, I'm like, okay, well, clearly she wasn't in charge of the border because we don't share a border with any of those countries. All right. But I clicked on that link. There's a link up here. See, that's blue. I clicked on that to get some more information where it says that Biden tapped Harris, if you know what I mean. And in that article, it says that Harris is going to lead efforts with Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. In fact, that is what was said. Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. PolitiFact pulled the same sleight of hand thing. Remember, this is important because our border is shared with Mexico. And so you might want to say that Kamala Harris was not working with Mexico to try and figure out a solution for the border. You would want to name Honduras and El Salvador and Guatemala. PolitiFact says this is mostly false. The border czar claim. They say Joe Biden didn't name Kamala Harris a border czar. He tasked her with addressing the issues driving migration from El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. At the top of their page, where they rate this as mostly false, this border czar claim, they say once again, Harris working alongside officials in Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. If you scroll down in the article, about 4 or 5 paragraphs, you see in a meeting in 21, Biden said Harris would lead U.S. diplomatic efforts and work with officials in Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. I just wonder why in the headlines or the leading paragraphs, whatever that's called, in article in newsman speak, why they don't mention Mexico, but then they mention it later on. They have to mention it later on because, of course, Mexico was involved in this conversation, like this conversation right here.
I've asked her, the VP today, because she's the most qualified person to do it, to lead our efforts with Mexico and the Northern Triangle and the countries that help are going to need help in stemming the movement of so many folks stemming the migration to our southern border.
Okay. I hope everyone picked that up. Of course, they're wearing masks. This is in March of 2021. Don't forget. That's a thing. It's a thing that happened. You know, not where I'm from, but it is a thing that I'm told people did around the United States. Okay, so that's my second part of this that I haven't really seen anyone mention. It seems to be that the media, the news media, is leaving out the country of Mexico from her duties. And then, of course, they're saying that she was supposed to figure out the economic reasons, you know, and try to stem the flood of migrants from those countries. Okay, let's accept that. Let's say that she wasn't tasked with finding the locations where people were coming across the border and stopping that from happening. Let's say she was tasked with stemming because of economic reasons, probably climate change related stuff like that from these countries. Okay, how'd she do it that? Did she do a good job? Did she complete that task? Or did she fail miserably? I don't know, you tell me. Guys, those are the dumb bleeps. Wow, we still made it 55 minutes. Holy crap. Let's get some votes in, y'all. Let's go to the Dumb Bleep of the Week voting channel right quick. We got number 1, the swap for democracy. Number 2, we're not at war. Number 3, Secret Service tells Trump not to go outside. Number 4, Republicans pounce. Number 5, Trump says prison for flag burning. Number 6, Trump too old for president, as everyone knows. People on the left have always held very high standards for people's age. Number 7, Kamala for freedom. Number 8, super real candid Obama call. Number 9, the Minnesota Freedom Fund. Number 10, not the border czar. And an honorary number 11 for Charlie. Let's get those votes in while everyone is finishing up the voting process. I'll tell you, go to GodHatesFeds.com, get your very own God Hates Feds t-shirt or whatever other t-shirt you find, or I don't know, maybe it's a sticker, or it's a coffee mug or something like that you want to find on GodHatesFeds.com. If you want to be involved in the voting process, if you want to hang out with all these fine people in the Fed Haters Club, you want to go to joingml.com. It's a minimum of $7 a month right now. It's a minimum of $7 a month to join the Fed Haters Club. You could pay more if you want to. That's up to you. That is how we keep the lights on in this place. Okay, so if you want to chip in, it's not $1.05, but if you want to chip in your $7, that's inflation, folks. That's how we're going to keep the lights going over here. Make sure you visit the fine websites of our lovely advertisers that we have here on this program. Text GML to 231231 for Nugenics and go to expressvpn.com/GML. If you want to watch things on Netflix that are available in other countries and other streaming platforms. Also, if you want to hide your IP address, if you want to make your location Russia, that way people think that you're not actually posting memes for the United States, you're posting them on behalf of Russia. Just switch your location to Russia and waste some people's time, waste some feds' time if you want to do that, okay? Do that thing. And it looks like it's going to be not the border czar. We got more people listening right now than have voted, but I'm going to go ahead and call it not the border czar. Looks like it's going to be the winner. What do you think? Is that what should have won? Let us know. Good AM Liberty on X. You can go to Good Morning Liberty on your favorite podcast app. Join GML.com to get involved in the live group, the Fed Haters Club. We'll see you again next Tuesday night.
Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it'll cost a little over $5 per month, but Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you're feeling so inspired. You'll get a special membership badge that's visible in the Odyssey chat room, and if we get enough supporters, we may enable